Hello and welcome back to the Dr. Heinz YouTube channel. And over here we serve nothing but the source. The source. That's what we have over here to deliver. And on this channel, I've been covering the Jonathan Majors case since it started, and you can find the playlist of that case in the description. But today we are going to be looking at the broader picture of this case and what has happened throughout trial. So yeah, sit back because there's a massive stain on Jonathan Majors right now, and that stain is basically him being called an abuser, and today we're going to be looking at whether he is deserving of that title, if I can call it that. I make it sound as if it's a WWE championship belt or something like that, but it's far from the case. And for those that don't know the details about this case, he was in an altercation with his former girlfriend, former ex-girlfriend. No, former girlfriend is ex-girlfriend. My bad. Anyway, yeah, he was in an altercation with his ex-girlfriend, in his SUV, and basically he was trying to. She reached for the phone. He tried to get his phone back, and next thing you know, he's running away from her, getting into the hotel. Next morning, 14 hours later, I would say, found himself in an hotel room. Found himself back in his apartment with his girl passed out in the closet. So he called the police and he was arrested for domestic violence. And here he is, Ryan trial, being found guilty of aggravated reckless assault. Third degree assault. Yeah, third degree assault, third degree reckless assault and harassment. So we are going to talk about gender bias in regards to this case, and as well as whether what he has been found guilty of is deserving of being called an abuser. And to do that today, I have two lovely ladies with me, who go by the name of Liana K, who is returning to the channel. You may remember her from the verdict stream if you were live in that stream, as well as Legalbytes, who's making her first appearance on the channel. And I appreciate each and every single one of these one of these ladies for joining me. Thank you so much. How are you doing, ladies? Yeah. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah. No. Well, I like receipts, so I haven't released the interview yet, so they don't know that. But yes, I have interviewed Legal Bites for the Debt v Her docuseries that I done, which is also on the channel. You can go check that out. It's literally in a neat playlist. It's called the Debt v Her Labyrinth. So yeah, she is on that. But the full interview will all be released this week. So I appreciate the layup there. I appreciate the layup. I will finish my chances. I will dunk him. So I appreciate the assist. Thank you. Yeah, you've been covering this case, Alita. We start with you. You've been covering this case since it basically went to trial, and you have there have been some I believe, run me through that, because last time we spoke, I believe you said you spoke to a doctor in regards to Grace Jabbari's injuries, to the laceration to her ear, as well as the finger injury that she had. Run me through that. What if you don't mind, what was her opinions in regards to those injuries? Damn it. Okay, one second. Let me fix that up. Sorry about this.
I'm
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, Lord. Okay, so apologies for that. Apologies for that.
No worries.
Yeah, for those that did miss that, completely.
Let's
Yeah,
recap the last couple minutes.
Yeah, the last couple of minutes. Basically, Alita has been a guest on the channel before, but I am releasing the interview that I done with her in regards to the Dev v. Her docu-series. So, question to you again. In regards to the doctor that you have interviewed, is the interview out yet on your channel?
Not yet. Not yet,
Oh,
but it's I know it should be sure, but
crazy.
I'm still happy to talk about it because it's this will be a great little advertisement for it. Because I can't possibly talk about everything that we went over in that interview. I mean, it was 2
Right, right,
hours, which I still have to figure out a way to condense 2 hours of conversation with a doctor, into a
right.
shorter digestible video. Um and anyway, but it was great. I mean, we both went into it having seen what was publicly available going into trial at the beginning of trial and being
Yeah,
very skeptical because of the video surveillance footage. I mean, that's what anybody had, right? There were no photos of the injuries or anything other than Jonathan Major's injuries.
right.
Um we couldn't see her finger, we couldn't see the ear laceration. And so it wasn't until almost at the very end of trial that that was even available. So after the verdict came out, I reached back out to her because we had already had one conversation and we're kind of like, this is what we can tell. I don't know about her claims. It doesn't really seem very likely.
Hmm.
Um, and after the verdict came out, I was like, I still think that there's value in going back and reviewing this, even though the verdict has already happened. And so she was like, yeah, I'd love to come back on and, and talk about it based on the additional information that's out there. And I will say, because of the photos, I mean, we still didn't even see the X-ray of the finger, but
Right,
based
right,
on
right.
what she was able to explain about the bruising and what it looked like where the fracture was and the ear laceration, based on the ear laceration was actually the more convincing one for her of as to like how it probably happened, which was really, really interesting. We did not get any of that information coming out to the public coming out of trial. My assumption
Mhm.
is the jury heard this, but it just wasn't reported. But I think that no, after that conversation, I can totally understand why the jury decided in the way that they did that there was actually a physical assault. And it makes me think even more so that the strategy that the defense took was absolutely the wrong strategy.
I
Right.
agree.
Right. Okay. So, let's go into that. Why
Yeah.
this convincing um piece of evidence you, that was analyzed, and what convinced you about that? Like, what made it convincing for you?
So so let's talk about the ear laceration as an
Right.
example.
Right. Hmm.
What she explained to me was she said when it came to just comparing it to the fracture, she said, based on what I can see here, I don't know how much I can tell you. She's like, other than I can tell you probably where it is, but we don't have the mechanism for how it happened.
Mhm.
Was it a crush?
Right.
Is it a spiral? Probably not a spiral fracture based on the testimony that came out. And so she was very careful to say, we don't know exactly what the mechanism was. And if we don't know the mechanism, we can't really drill down like who did it or what the circumstances were for how it happened, whether it was her falling down and catching her fall or jamming her finger in the car door or something. So she was very, very clear about how much she could how far she could go based on the information that she had. When she
Right.
saw the ear laceration, she said that she was very convinced. I don't know if I should say without a doubt. I was going to say without a doubt. Oh, also our video is out now.
No, 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 no. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
We're back up.
Okay. Tech problems happen.
Yes,
Um,
I'm so sorry,
so
guys.
that's okay. So
Oh, come on. Oh, oh, my bad, guys. My bad, guys. Okay, so right, so you guys are back on. So run me through
Okay.
that again.
Okay,
Right. It could have been.
I don't know how much people heard of me, but I think it was the ear. So it was a shearing injury is what she said.
Right.
Is that,
Mhm.
a shearing injury, meaning either your head has moved backward and your ear is staying in place, or your ear or your head is staying in place and something else has come forward to push it forward, and it basically just tears it forward. So
No, 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 no.
still no.
It's back on. They're probably late.
Okay.
They're probably late. Yeah.
They
So
got lag. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. I want to make sure that what
No,
I'm
no,
saying is
no, no.
captured.
You're fine. So
Okay.
the shearing injury, it seems like go on.
Yeah. So what she said was, it could usually what happens is either it gets caught on something or there's some sort of friction. And so she said, there are some things that are more likely than others to create a shearing injury. She said it could have happened in the car door when he pushed her back in. It could have happened that way, maybe, if there's enough friction there. But she said, on an interior, a car's interior, definitely possible. More
Mhm.
likely than cloth would be leather seating. I don't know what kind of seating is on the inside of that car, but I would not be surprised, given that it's a luxury driver. I would
Hired
not
cars
be
are usually
surprised.
leather. Yeah.
Yeah, I would not
Yeah.
be surprised if it was leather, in which case, it's her right ear. The testimony was that she had her back turned to him so that she could have the phone. But it could be that at some point she turned to him and then tried to pull away from him to like hold on to the phone, and that shearing injury happened. Now, regardless of whether the injury happened, in the car or at some other time, there still is the intent element that has to be proven. But the thing here, though, is that it seems like the defense completely ignored the possibility that the jury could be convinced that A, the injury happened inside or at the car, and B, that Majors was the one that caused it. Because it could have happened in the car and it could have been her own fault.
Yeah.
But, you
Yeah.
know, but if you just deny that any of it happened at
Yep.
all, and then it looks like the timing lines up, then
Yeah.
the jury can say, well, you're saying that none of this happened at all, but it looks pretty convincing that it happened at this point in time and in this place. So it seems pretty damn guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
Yeah.
okay,
I don't know why they didn't leave, why the defense didn't leave, that the tussle happened, but she was the aggressor. It was self-defense, not that it happened at another time. I agree. That was a very, very strange strategy.
well, this is very interesting because what did come out of at least what Danny was filling me in on when the defense's expert came out was that she did say that it couldn't have been caused with a blow, but she also said that if this injury did happen the way that she was describing, etc., it would be an immediate blood flow, like like the blood would have been, and as a result, it would have been somewhere in the car, which is, she didn't say that, by the way. I don't think the expert said that because
Mhm.
I'm just putting together based on the fact that they
yeah.
didn't find blood in the car. So I'm just putting that
Well,
two and two together.
and
But
we talked about that too.
Yeah.
We did talk about that too. And when we talked about this possibly being a shearing injury, I mean, when I looked at it as a non-medical professional, when I first looked at that, I said, that looks like a slice to me. It seems like there would be blood on something in the car if it happened in the car. But
right,
if
right,
that's a
right.
shearing
It's a
injury,
friction burn.
it could be that the place that opened up in her skin didn't actually touch the car. It could be that it was the earlobe that touched the car, in which case there could be blood, but it could have just been on her head and not actually gotten as far as the car seat.
That's enough. Okay, so based on what you're describing to me, yes, I mean, I do want to pick on the defense a little bit, but I rather, I've done that for so many streams because people know I've also like
Play devil's advocate. I'm totally fine with that.
okay, all right, let's play devil's advocate. Like, we know that they didn't go for the defensive strategy of look, self-defense. I even there was self-defense, but however, um based on the strategy that they did go down by, was there a way that they could have still made these points, but still said there is no way Jonathan was responsible for these injuries and he wasn't the aggressor, so to speak, but without citing self-defense or anything like that? Is there a way that you would have argued that without going to the legal defense of self-defense?
Yeah, I mean, they could have argued that she was very aggressive in
Yeah.
trying to get the phone, and that in that strong aggression that she ended up hurting herself. I mean, I don't know if that's a winning argument, but you can definitely make the argument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so this is
I mean,
but
those particular charges are very hard to defend against by design. So it's one of those things that, the important thing for the purpose of this conversation is she attempted to paint him as a serial abuser. The jury didn't buy that. The more serious charge of intentional assault 3, he was found
Right.
not guilty of. So all that stuff with the text and the audio call and all that stuff, they didn't buy it. It came down to, based on what Danny reported on what the jury was asking to see again,
Mhm.
the car one. So that moment where she very clearly goes up in the air and back down in the car. And
Yeah.
then the report of the friend at the club establishing her finger was injured when they got to the club and she provided her ice. That's enough for reckless assault 3.
I don't think so. That's
Well,
enough to
based on
establish
the
that an
defense
injury
strategy.
happened.
That's right. That's right.
That's
Well, I
it's
think
it's
that
enough to establish that an injury happened, but
Yeah.
to prove reckless assault, you still have to get his state of mind, which is
right.
you have to show that he knew that there was a risk that he was creating and that he consciously disregarded that risk.
Right.
And the thing is, they could have hammered in her athleticism. She's a
Yeah.
dancer. She's
That's right,
used
but they
to
didn't.
punishing
Yeah.
her own body in a lot of ways. So there are a lot of ways that, and obviously he knew that. He knew what kind of what she did for work, because that's how they met in the first place.
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Very
So
interesting.
I mean,
No,
they
it
totally could have. There was so much room for them to argue that there's no way that he could have thought that he was creating an extra risk by doing what he did, and that he was only using a minimal amount of physical force in order to like minimize the
stop her
harm to
from
him.
running into traffic or her attacking him. Yeah.
This is very interesting because you do have him on video, and on the video he does I would just have to say it. He doesn't look reckless, like if he was just pushing her back, like, because that, to me, that's reckless. To me, if someone is like self-defense outside of that, self-defense
Right.
outside, if someone is coming at you and you're pushing them, your state of mind is, I don't care where they're gonna go, I don't care what's gonna happen. Like, a push to me anyway
Yeah.
suggests a lot of recklessness. But he lifted. There's a lot of care there. First and foremost, if you're lifting somebody to put them into a car, I don't know how you can get reckless out of that. Like, unless, even if the head did hit the door frame, even if, I still don't see how that would be reckless. Like, maybe you can provide a bit more
Yeah.
light on that for me. Like,
I don't know. I mean, the thing is, because the argument was not made to focus them
Right.
on the importance of that element, it's so hard
Right.
to know exactly what they were thinking on that element.
Right.
I really do think that because they didn't talk about recklessness like at all, according to what came out of the courtroom, or what
Yeah.
was reported, at least. I mean, there could have been plenty of stuff that was talked about that just wasn't reported because either people missed it, or or they don't understand the process as well as they
Yeah.
should if they're reporting on it, or something. But we like there definitely was a dearth of information coming out of the courtroom
Yeah.
overall.
Right.
But I think if they don't make the argument to focus the jury on the importance of that element, we just don't know what they were thinking in terms of recklessness, because people can also very easily get confused between recklessness and negligence, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
that's true too. That's what I think happened personally.
because
Yeah.
if you ask me if I think he was negligent here, I think there's a good argument to be made that he was negligent. Was he
Yeah.
reckless though? I don't think so.
Right. Yeah. That's a good distinction. And I mean, there's a lot of things we don't know. The jury instructions, for instance, is the strongest grounds for appeal the overly prejudicial admission of those past text messages after she said Grace Jabbari apparently testified, this is coming from Danny's reporting, that he was never violent to her before. And so those text messages coming in, it's not a prior bad act. They were only introduced to show that there were other reasons she may have lied to the responding officers that morning. And the media went, and this is quite frankly, I think the bigger PR problem going forward for Jonathan Majors. And PR problem when we're talking about domestic violence sounds terrible, but let's face it, it's Hollywood. This is the real deal. A lot of celebrities are charged with reckless assault 3. A lot. A lot. It's a misdemeanor. It's a class A misdemeanor, but it's a misdemeanor. And it's not a felony. They go on with their lives. It's that he was found guilty of assaulting his girlfriend, mixed with those texts, mixed with that audio. And that there's been a lot of chatter with the defense attorneys I've spoken to, that the judge shouldn't have done that. It was overly prejudicial. And that's what got reported. That's what people are remembering. And, the idea of, threats of suicide are part of a pattern of abuse, all that stuff. All that's irrelevant to a reckless assault 3 charge, because a
Yeah.
reckless charge happens in the moment.
Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, I don't know that was the wrong decision to allow those text messages
Yeah, I'm
in,
not
because
sure either.
the door was opened by the defense on that issue.
Yep.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know that was the incorrect decision. And B, even if it were, in order to win an appeal on that issue, it's not just that there was an incorrect decision. First
Right.
off, evidentiary decisions are discretionary by the judge. So it has
Yeah.
to be an abuse of discretion. And not only that, the appellate court has to decide that this is an abuse of discretion and that it had ultimately an impact on the verdict.
Yeah.
So,
And that's
but
hard, seeing
That's
as
really
the
hard.
it's
intentional
really hard
assault
to
3.
prove.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my gut. I got in a
Oh,
lot of trouble on this stream for saying he shouldn't appeal. He should just do like a charm offensive, a PR thing, apologize for mistakes made, get on with it, because this is going to drag out for years
Yeah.
otherwise. Yeah.
I don't see an appeal being successful in this case. I
Thank
just
you.
don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not a legal expert, but based on other stuff I've seen with guys that end up in the system because of charges like this, the laws are written to be very, very hard to defend yourself against and very, very hard to appeal, because, it is that the jury getting it wrong is not grounds for appeal. And these cases, these sorts of charges very rarely go to trial, precisely because they're misdemeanors. People don't want to spend 2 weeks off work defending themselves against something on a first offense. You don't get jail time unless there are aggravating factors.
Right.
So this whole thing, Legalbytes, you're the expert here, but this whole thing is strange, correct? The amount of resources put towards this is not typical.
Yeah, it's definitely atypical to have a high profile trial over a misdemeanor. It
Yeah.
definitely is. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jonathan Majors has some kind of an anxiety about all of this happening, to include the text messages coming out, to include the audio coming out, and I think that may have also impacted the trial strategy too. Like just compare, anytime you have a trial, before I say what I was about to say, anytime you have a trial, there is bound to be bad information that is going to be exposed in discovery from both sides. And if it actually goes to trial, that will be made public. This is why, you know, I speculated that was probably why the Fox News Dominion case settled literally like
Yeah.
an hour before they were supposed to go to opening statements.
Yeah.
Like things like that will happen because of information that they probably don't want to be made public because of how much it's going to cause problems.
That's right.
Then you have another example that is maybe a little bit more comparable to this case, which is the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case,
Mhm.
right? I mean, this is like a lot of people have been talking about comparing these, whether fairly or unfairly. But
Yeah.
one of the things that is a fair comparison is the fact that damaging things from the relationship came out, text messages, audios, things like that. And the thing is, if you are going to pursue trial or continue defending in this kind of a case, because it takes two to tango, right? Both sides have to agree to either settle or
That's right.
persist. And even in a criminal case, a plea deal is a form of a settlement, essentially. Like it's the
That's
same
right.
thing, just in a criminal context. So, in order to continue proceeding with the defense, he had to understand, and I hope someone explained to him that there was a high likelihood of this kind of stuff coming out at some point. And they probably had a very strong anxiety about this stuff coming out. And so that's why they really wanted to put a very tight hold on it as much as possible. That got messed up because of, the defense's strategy and calling into question the reasons why she would,
Yeah.
she would want to lie to the cops. But, compare that to a different strategy, which was Johnny Depp's strategy, which was, they obviously they didn't want to let all of this damaging stuff in. But by the time that it did, they had established a framework for the jury and for all of the viewers that they don't have this crazy expectation that he's some sort of an angel or a saint.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why, like, people that are very critical of the verdict and
Ooh,
critical
okay.
of the fanfare of Johnny Depp now they try to say like, oh, but all of these damaging stuff that came out. But it's like people that watched the trial, people that were, that followed it very closely, like no one really thinks that he's, this like perfect angel. Like they
Right.
know he's got issues. Like, and whether you support him or not, it probably, well, if you support him, it probably comes from the fact that the evidence came out the way that it did.
Yeah.
But, but that was because they established a certain framework. There's a way to deal with bad facts in any
Yep.
kind of a trial, which takes the sting out of it. And the
That's
problem,
That's really well said.
no,
the
continue. And the problem.
Oh, okay. The problem with Jonathan Major's trial is that they tried to uphold this image of, I don't know if they mentioned this in trial, but he went to Yale for, for acting.
Yeah.
And then he's got a pedigree and he's been rising up the ranks in Hollywood over the last few years. And he
Yeah.
was like just about to go parabolic, but like, so he's got a bit of a pedigree, and I think that he probably really, really wanted to preserve that image. That also came out in the audio that came
Yeah.
out. Really, the Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama audio,
Right,
particularly, it seemed like he really wanted, and even in those text messages also, where he wanted to preserve an image, he wanted
Yeah.
to protect an image, which absolutely is his right. The problem is the reality of trial does not allow for someone to protect it when that information is now in the hands of someone who no longer has any interest in protecting that image as well.
That's right.
So
That
the
is
strategy should have changed considering those circumstances.
that is a very, very interesting point that you brought out in terms of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and the juxtaposition
Yeah.
of the strategies here, because I don't know if it's a defense thing or something like that, because of course the prosecution went first, and of course Depp went first with the as a plaintiff. So is it like a defense thing? Because it sounds to me like he went for the Amber defense, because that's what Amber Heard kind of did, like with her. Oh, so is it more of a defense strategy to try and be like, no, he is actually a saint, you guys are misrepresenting it, because they feel like perhaps if they
Well,
were to admit to prior bad acts, it would unduly go against them?
they did worse. They didn't paint him as a saint. They painted him as the real victim. And you get one juror who has a very strong opinion of what domestic abuse is, what it looks like, how it functions. The minute they see that video of boom, they're seeing daddy hit mommy, and that's it. And you can't tell that via jury screening. And that's why I agree that the defense strategy, I think the defense strategy it did not factor in the attention that was going to be focused, again, because these charges very rarely go to trial. Calling Grace Jabbari a liar again and again and again and again, I think hurt Jonathan Majors. I think, the big lies, little lies, pretty little lies comment that got quoted. Again, if he's trying to save his career, I completely agree that there were image considerations. They should have had a crisis response team in advising on some of this stuff, because you are setting yourself up for Darvo with Darvo accusations, deny and reverse victim of an offender.
Right.
When you're going, she's just a liar, she's just a liar. They really played into the stereotypes. Unfortunately, and this information comes with speaking to cops who investigate domestic violence cases. The most natural human response when you are falsely accused of something terrible, and a lot of men see domestic violence as terrible, right? The first thing they're going to do is be angry and go, I didn't do it, she's a liar. Of course, that is what the public perception of a guilty person does. And this is a big problem with managing these kind of things. So you wanted to say something? Legalbytes? Sorry.
Oh, I was no, I don't want to interrupt. I have a thought on calling her a liar, that part, because there have been there's at least one case that comes to mind where it actually did work for the person, but I don't want to interrupt because it could be a departure thought.
Yeah,
so I
no,
want to
I
make
mean,
sure you finish.
I think we could deep dive into. I'm glad you said you thought it was a mistake, because I looked at this stuff and went, the reporting I read of some of the things that the lawyer, Chowdhury was her last name.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
Priya
believe.
Chaudhary.
I mean, she's a really good lawyer, but I think she got too emotionally invested in this case and overdid it. If you compare her strategy, like attacking Grace Jabbari that way, compared to the very, very light touch Camille Vasquez used on Amber Heard. And I mean, Amber Heard had a lower bar to prove, right? Of one, she was the defendant, but those civil trials are preponderance of evidence cases. The wall to scale was so much higher there, and she went really.
Just to
Yeah,
just to
go ahead.
clarify, though, in civil cases, the burden is actually lower than in criminal cases, because in criminal
Right.
cases it's beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
For civil cases, it's basically it's more likely than not. So people will say,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if you get past the 50-yard line on a football field, that's enough to win a civil case. But the thing that made it so
Right.
difficult in I mean American football, sorry, Heinz. I just realized.
Yeah, we're all different countries. That meant something totally different. Yeah.
But the thing that made it so difficult for Johnny Depp, though, was the actual malice standard. They had to show that she knew that what she was saying was false, and that she said it anyway.
Yeah. And
anyway, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you for the clarification. The biggest, I think, asset that the Depp team had was Amber Heard. And it was, the jury in interviews afterwards said that they both testified they believed him more than they believed her. And a big compare and contrast between the two cases. I hate doing this because one was a civil case and one was a criminal case. The way you argue each is very different. But and I think the public gets confused because a lot of these, like the Harvey Weinstein case, was criminal, but I believe the Kevin Spacey case was civil. So we're sort of all over the map of how these
Right.
things work through the courts. But Jonathan Majors did not testify. And that's a big difference in terms of public perception between the Depp and the Jonathan Majors cases. It
Yeah.
was televised or streamed. The public got a sense of Johnny Depp. They saw that contrition. They saw him seem afraid when he was speaking about her. They saw him reflectively put up his hands while he was describing, some of the abuse she committed against him. They got a sense of him. And that is a big difference. I'm not saying Jonathan Majors should have testified. They could have done, some tests and decided, no, this is a bad idea. He just comes off too much, not enough. But it is a big difference when you compare the two public perceptions.
Right.
Yeah. I will say though, I don't fully agree that Camille Vasquez took a light touch with Amber Heard, because that cross-examination was pretty intense.
But
in
that's
my
a
opinion.
cross, right?
But it was
Yeah.
a different strategy though. It was a different strategy of attack rather than just saying she's a liar, she's a liar, she's a
Yeah.
liar. They attacked the actual accusations that she made,
Yeah.
and then with
Go
basically
down.
with facts.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that cross was legendary. It was so like the needle she threaded there. When she
Mhm.
challenged her, it was done with a smile. It felt very well. If you see top-notch interrogators work, it was, we both know that's not true, right? As opposed to, this is not true and you're a liar, right? And again, we don't really know what the tone was in court because, again, we're getting all this stuff based on, I agree, very, very spotty, very biased reporting. But I do think that actually using the word liar that much was, I agree with you that it really was a blind spot regarding
Mhm.
that reckless assault
Right.
3
Yeah.
charge.
Yeah.
They really, really focused on the intentional assault 3, which, yes, speaks to a pattern. And I do agree that there were some image considerations. And I do agree that the word anxiety that you used, I think, was spot on, because one thing we don't talk about enough in these cases is, as I alluded to earlier, what it feels like to be accused of this in
Mhm.
public, and the intense panic of, this is never going to go away. And I
Yeah.
think that he wasn't, again, I'm coming at this from an environmental, social kind of managing people element, not the legal one. I do think that wasn't managed. I think he wasn't sat down and the point made to him of, look, you're looking at the next 2 years of your life. You got to look at the next 20 and what's going to
Right.
be the best for you. And I think either he just didn't listen or he wasn't well served in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah. To basically chime in here in regards to, I'll be fair to Priya, she did really try to hammer home the point, well, at least make him seem a bit sympathetic, because he was the one that called the police. I personally think that was a good defense, but should have added on to these other points of consideration without maybe going to the self-defense element. Because
I think they just left the door open too much on that that reckless assault charge.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, 100%. But in terms of what I'm basically alluding to is basically the image aspect, because they did try their best to basically say, look, listen, he's the one that called the police. He was not even anywhere near her when she collapsed, etc. He was at the hotel, etc. They did establish that pretty well. So all of that is what I really want to hear from what Legalbytes wanted to say earlier before
About the lying comment.
Oh, yeah. So
Yeah.
there
yeah,
so there was another case where I remember, and this was another case that was in New York, not televised by. So I would, I had to rely on the reporting to kind of follow it, but it was the Kevin Spacey trial, the civil case that was
That was
an
tragic.
accusation
Yeah.
from a guy who said that he was like 14 or something like that at the time
Anthony
that he
what?
says that Kevin Spacey,
Yeah.
assaulted him in an intimate way. I don't want to demonetize your channel or the video for you. So I
Continue.
get a little floral with the way that I describe this.
Yeah. You gotta be careful.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Continue.
So there was I remember when I wonder I don't even remember who it was that was representing Kevin Spacey, but I wonder if it was Priya Chaudhry, because maybe she takes cases similar to this. No, it was a
No,
woman though.
she defended Paul Haggis unsuccessfully.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't remember who it was, but it was a female attorney who was representing him. And I remember reading about the opening statements, and he was defense, right? Just like, in this case, although it was a civil case, and arguably it was a lower burden for the plaintiff.
Mhm.
And in opening statements, the defense really came out like with their hair on fire, basically saying this guy is an absolute liar. He's trying to use Kevin Spacey's
Yeah.
fame and his money and his reputation and all this kind of stuff, and just trying to take him down because, now that he's made it, essentially, after so many years in the industry. And it just, I remember reading that and I was like, holy crap, that is a very intense way to start. I really hope for their sake that they've got, evidence to back it up.
That was Patrick Gibbs, I believe. Yeah,
thought it
because
was
it's
a
a
female.
man who is promiscuous, not publicly out of everyone in the business knows he's gay, who wants to just be a normal guy. That was the way they leveraged it. And
Yeah,
let's
Anthony
face it,
Rapp.
it's two men. Oh,
Yeah.
Dougie in background.
Oh,
Very exciting. I just squirreled so hard. Dog in background.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
that's
this
Indy.
And
then there's other cats that often pop in as well. I've got
Yes,
one right here just off
I
camera.
have
She's
cat
snoozing.
bombs too. Yeah. No, but this is, I think, an important. We talked on the verdict stream about, everybody laughed at me when I said white coated, but willowy blonde lady, large black man. The dynamics here are very unique. I mean, just by the nature of the roles Jonathan Majors has played, um, it does, the way he just physically fills space. None of this stuff is fair. But these sorts of biases, it is a totally different thing to bystanders to get on the stage and hammer at a guy. You're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. To do it to a woman is a totally different dynamic because of that stereotype, that false perception that people have that women are inherently more honest. It's a bigger ask. It's a bigger reach when you do it to a a blonde-haired, willowy, meek-voiced little thing. If Jonathan Majors had been white or Grace Jabbari had been black, it's different dynamics.
Yeah.
And that is really, really unfortunate. But I mean, why tiptoe around it?
I think these dynamics do come into play, whether they ultimately make a difference or not. I don't know, but they do come into play in some form typically. And I think that's an interesting point that, in Kevin Spacey's case, that was a same sex kind of situation. But I do still think that it is possible to overplay that hand, even in that kind of a situation, because, if the plaintiff, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what he looked like, but, if he was someone that appeared to be, I mean, granted, in that case, we were talking about someone who at the time, obviously not at the time of the trial, but the time of the allegations, the incident that allegedly happened, he was like a teenager or something.
Yeah.
So,
This
you've
the
got
Anthony Rapp case, right? He
yes,
was the
yeah.
victim. Yeah. I mean, that case seemed to come down to the fact that he misremembered or didn't properly describe the actual environment, that apparently Kevin Spacey did not live in that area or hadn't been there at the
It was
time. Yeah.
was that compiled with the fact that he had to admit on the stand that he had gone to see a ton of Kevin Spacey movies when they came
Which
out after the
is
incident.
it's really hard not to. And that's the weird thing, right? I know
Yeah.
people who cannot let go of their abusers. They follow everything they do. There's this pull. I mean, domestic abuse is still really poorly understood. And I
Yeah.
mean, I unfortunately had a front row seat to the way at least the system up here treats different types of offenders differently. I mean, I'm still
Mm.
being stalked by a woman. And I've actually had cops say, well, she's only 5'4". How dangerous can she be? And it was amazing because she put on a lot of weight between the original incident and later. And you see the change when they think it's this teeny little thing versus
Mhm.
somebody who's built more substantially. The attitude changes. And
Yeah.
people can do a lot of damage when they're in a rage. It doesn't matter how small or willowy, rage strong, people get superhuman. And it was amazing to me because, of course, part of my situation was a false claim of domestic violence. And they arrested him, caught her lying. And unfortunately, I was caught up in it because she was supposed to work for me the day after she claimed she was originally assaulted by a stranger
Mm.
and ended up with a pin straight slice on the inside of her arm. I saw the injury because she showed up after calling me that day and said I was attacked by someone. I don't know. It was a stranger. They just attacked me. And then the story changed to it was her ex-boyfriend. And so she's been stalking me ever since. And the perception of inherent threat, this is the thing. It's at least here, they assess how credible a threat is.
Mm.
So if someone, say, doesn't have the means to get where you live, it's considered less credible. If they don't know where you live, it's less credible, right? And I actually had a sergeant from 2 divisions say to me on the phone, because I said, look, I don't want to waste your time. What do I need to come back to you with information that you can act on? And I will remember this to my dying day. He said, well, if she walked up to you in a crowded room full of people and punched you in the face, that would be great.
Oh, we're gonna expand on that because I don't
Yeah.
have legal bites for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really wanna no because damn, I I know of someone that been through something very similar, and it just is just the intersection here is it's amazing. But
Yeah,
I want
but
to ask you, I want to ask you, legal bites, before you go.
Mhm.
I want to say, I want to ask because you've done a video on Trevor Bauer
Mhm.
on the Trevor Bauer case, and you were talking about shame and
Mhm.
the dynamics that's gone on, and like when it comes to DV matters. In your experience, looking at the reports and what was going on with Grace Jabbari, etc., because she is essentially being called a false accuser in this case based on a lot of what people have seen on the evidence. She's the one that was chasing him down the road.
Right.
She's the one, like, so based on the text messages, all of those things coming into a trial, and from this, do you believe, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, so I'll try and be careful with my question. Do you believe she is somebody that could have experienced DV, maybe at it before Jonathan, but all those feelings rushed back and then she's ascribing them to Jonathan? Or do you believe she's just a blatant false accuser and just wanted him to pay for leaving her? Basically, retaliatory retaliation. Is it retaliatory? No, retaliation abuse. I don't know.
Retaliatory is that's a
retaliatory
word.
abuse. Yeah.
Retaliatory abuse. Yeah. What do you think is going on? Went on in this trial?
Yeah. Well, I will say it's hard to know, and not having seen her testimony for
Yes.
one thing.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, everyone will agree, right?
Right.
Like that's an easy point to make. Point.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't know. I based on the limited information that came out about their relationship, it does sound like there was some toxicity. There were ways that they were communicating and not communicating, and maybe self-medicating. Um, at least on her part, there is testimony that suggests that, right? You
Right.
know, the
Yeah.
there was the doctor who testified about how much she drinks in a day, as she self-reported. Um, you know, there definitely could be trauma that both of them have from before the relationship, or maybe even during the relationship. I don't know. It definitely seems to me that these are not two people that at the time, maybe not now. Maybe now they've both done self-work. I hope
Mhm.
so. I really do, because it sounds like they probably both need it. Um and I don't mean
Yeah.
that in like a
No, I agree
like
with
to,
you.
as like a
Yeah.
stat, like, oh, like
No,
you
those
could use some self-help.
yeah.
No, but I think at the time that they were in this relationship, the snapshot that we've received, that we've been given of their relationship, definitely tells me that there is stuff for them both to work on. And it could also be that they, you know, it- oftentimes when it comes to relationships, you know, sometimes the thing that attracts two people together is the toxicity.
Mhm.
And it could be that is something that happened here. It could be other things that attracted them to each other, or it could be this darker side of the other person that seemed to connect with them in a way that is unhealthy, but happens. So I don't know. I mean, I to take the long route, I'm not sure I can really give a strong answer. I think it's possible. It's possible she has some kind of trauma. It's possible that she, didn't remember fully what happened the night before. I mean, there definitely was so much. I mean, that was one of my suspicions from the testimony that did come out from what was reported in this case, was that she had, it sounds like, a lot of alcohol. She even testified that she got to a certain point where she was nervous being out on her own as a woman in New York. And so she wanted to take herself home. It wasn't that she got tired. It wasn't that, that
Yeah.
her injuries were hurting, or she felt like she, needed to rest. She said, no, I had enough alcohol that I felt like I should go home.
Fo-
Um,
follow-up question, because
yeah.
I'm gonna juxtapose it to the Johnny Depp case, because I want to add up to the media reporting of this case. The Johnny Depp case, of course, we saw
The mega pints?
megapint
Yeah.
megapint endless threads about narcotics, substance abuse,
Yeah.
etc. All of those things.
Drugs were on the agenda.
Drugs were on the
They
oh
were
my
Drugs
god.
were
literally
Your
on the
yeah,
reaction,
agenda.
on the
your
agenda.
reaction to that
Yeah.
on stream was so legendary. Like, oh my god, it was literally a gem. But no,
Like,
but
I definitely thought that was a turn of phrase that he was using. Like, what if Depp's many turns of phrases?
but 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 yeah, to my question is, basically, we saw substance abuse being admitted to there, and the media reporting of it, they were still hounding in on his drug use and how this could have been a credible case of domestic abuse, because he was abusing drugs for, like, substances, sorry, for
Right.
like the duration of their relationship. However,
Mhm.
with Grace Jabbari, who was there is evidence, like there's body cam where she was passed out. She
Yeah.
admits to being passed out.
Mm.
There is she was in the club. It was undeniable that she was
Yeah.
drunk. Her own prophet, like
Yeah.
her prosecution's own witness, expert witness, sorry, the doctor that was treated on the day, said that she has a propensity. Not, I don't want to misquote, so I'll just say she basically had the Odyssey exam at a threshold of 5. Sorry, at a score of 5, when the threshold for women is 3, which means they could
Yeah.
have an alcohol disorder. All these
Yeah.
facts came out of the
Yeah.
case, but you
Right.
never heard about it from the media, as if it wasn't a factor to consider
Well,
Um,
that's again a flattening of domestic violence risk factors, and we can talk about that
yes,
later. But yeah.
yes. But I wanted to bring this to Alida. Just get your opinions on it because of the way that it was reported, and also do you think, especially with substance abuse, etc., do you think that she like the fact that that was omitted, that there was some form of gender bias in this, or is like I don't know if I'm asking that correctly, but do
Yeah.
you believe that, let me ask you this way, do you believe that that during the whole course of this trial that the prosecution benefited from the case in regard in with the fact that she was a blonde white coded woman that uh that was against a black heavy built, relatively shorter 6 foot black man? Do you think that they benefit from that stereotype?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to stereotypes and trials, stereotypes, I mean, yes, people will come in with biases. Every human being walks into a room with some kind of bias. People, whether they realize it or not. The trick of the lawyers in the room is to manage those and to work with those. It's a bit like, I kind of think of as a bit of a metaphor is, kind of like Krav Maga. How, like, when you learn I've never learned Krav Maga, but from
What a
people
comparison.
bear with me
Sorry.
for a second. So when
Sorry,
when
sorry.
people talk about Krav Maga, they say that the whole thing about it, right, is that you walk into any altercation with your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
The point is to turn your weaknesses into strengths. And
Right.
so that's the responsibility of the lawyers in the room that are advocating for their side. So, I think that it's definitely possible to make a blanket statement and say the prosecution benefited from the fact that she is, a smaller white, blonde-haired woman, who came across as very meek and was crying a lot and all this kind of stuff. The thing is, the defense also knew going into that courtroom what she looked like
Yeah.
and what she acted like. And more importantly than what she looked like is what she acted like. They any witness has the ability to potentially, at least theoretically, strike emotions in the hearts of the jury.
Right.
Any witness does, whether that is the mother of the victim, the sibling of the defendant, or I mean, anyone, literally anyone. It could be some random guy that works for TMZ who walked in the door. Like any
Trailer
witness has
park
that
owner,
ability.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or the
Right,
best friend
right.
that became an artist, and like
Yeah.
Right.
so anyway,
I love the references,
so
by the way.
Was
Yeah.
vaping during the deposition. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Sorry, continue.
So any witness, even expert witnesses, have that ability, right?
Yeah.
Although a lot of them tend to be dry. But the thing is, going into it, the defense knew what she was going to do on the stand. They at least should have been prepared for it, and to have a strategy for how is the jury going to react, A, to when she's crying on the stand, and B, when we come down hard on her after she's been crying on the stand. Because if you have someone who is acting very emotionally and seems very meek and seems very mild and seems very timid, coming down hard on them can 100% backfire. This is like, so cross-examination of that witness has to be very, very delicate. Like we've seen this in all kinds of different trials. I mean, even going back to oh gosh, what was it? There was a police officer who had was it Potter? Was that her name? I can't remember. She
accidentally killed her neighbor?
No, it was, she thought she was pulling out a taser, but she pulled out her firearm.
That's right.
That case. I remember it was the mother of the victim that had testified. and then they came to cross-examination, and I remember watching this testimony and I was like, her direct examination was so emotional. She has just buried her son, who was like 18 or 19 at the time or something like that. And I was like, how is this cross-examination going to go? Because like this has to be done very delicately, because you've got to do your job to get in there and to press on the facts, to press on, on your case,
Right.
to get the information that you need for your side,
Right.
but to
Yeah.
do it in a way that the jury isn't going to turn around and look at you and be like, how dare you?
Yeah.
So the same thing can happen with someone who says that they are a victim of DV.
Yeah.
If the jury is feeling like from the direct examination that they seem, pretty credible, you've got to pull out those, untangle all those knots one by one, but do so in a way that is proper for those circumstances and for that witness.
Well, I'm really I really appreciate that insight, because the nuances of being able to adapt. It seems like, as great as you are, because I do think Priya is a very credible, it's a very competent lawyer,
Oh
because
yeah, she's a good lawyer.
yeah, because she got former prosecutor Adam Voss out of a sexual assault like a rape charge. She delivered that acquittal, and it was really, and she drove home how pivotal the text message is. You may not be aware of that case, but that's a massive win, because it's very hard, at least looking at it, it's very hard to get an acquittal, especially nowadays anyway, on those kind of cases, because of the stereotypes that we've discussed on the stream, and all of those things. So I really like that nuance, because that nuance view, because it seems like she maybe did not adapt well. And Daddy did say that Grace did come across, she didn't want like to admit it, but she did come across sympathetic, to the jury. So, but I don't want to hold you anymore. I don't want to thank you ever so much for joining
Of
me.
course.
Do go check her out. Her channel is Legalbytes Media, at Legalbytes Media, but she breaks down legal cases.
Really great content. Yeah.
Really,
Great content. Yeah.
really great. She's done works like Adam Bauer. She's looked into that case, broke it down, depth v. heard, the recaps, and the full trial watch. She is an amazing worker. Believe me.
Thank you.
Go check her out, because I don't know if anyone has ever told you this, but you're kind of a big deal. You're kind of a big deal. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
so
very
much
kind
for
of you.
Thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure.
I forgot to say. Yeah, I forgot to say. She's also a lawyer. If you didn't know, that was my bad.
You think?
No. I'm sorry.
Knows her stuff. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I did not. Sometimes I'm a bad Heinz Fury. I'm a bad sometimes. But no, thank you so much. I really hope to bring you back, because I believe I'm covering Courtney Clenny case next, and I believe you touched on that, and you've done coverage on that. So I would love to really have you on to really go through that case. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Any last words? Any last words?
No, I mean, other than I've got one more video on this case coming out. Hopefully very shortly. So that's going to be me talking with Jess the MD, who's another YouTuber, but she's a doctor, a real MD, qualified to talk about these kinds of injuries and stuff that came up in this trial. And it was fascinating. It was so fascinating. I love talking with experts coming from these other fields that bring in their expertise, related to these trials, because like I said, I am not a medical expert. And so I have my impression, and then I talk to them and I'm like, oh, I have 100% learned something here. I didn't realize that, bruising doesn't show up on the actual fracture. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, and she's been like, I'm glad you said that, because I think you were one of the only streamers during the Debbie Heard trial that actually got actual psychologists and nurses to come on your panel, and I really admire that. Thank you again. She's amazing.
It is purely to take a load off of my plate to be like, I don't need to speculate on this. I'm
Yeah.
not an expert. I don't need to like make a fool out of myself. I just bring someone else that has the credentials and let them talk and ask them
Right,
questions.
right.
Perfect.
No, thank you so much, by the way. Oh, make sure you follow her on Legalbytes Media, and yeah, like thank you so much. I just for joining me today.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I'd love to be back.
All right, bye
So,
bye.
all righty. Okay. See
She's great.
She's amazing. She's
Yeah, really, really
amazing.
great. Yeah.
So yeah, so we are an hour and 11 minutes into the stream. So for all of you that are still here, I think we have now hit peak 45 viewers. So I appreciate
Mhm.
every single one of you that woke up this early, because I know it's not early for me. It's
It's not
great for
early
me.
for you. Yeah. Yeah,
But I
not early for you.
appreciate Legalbytes and you, Liana, for joining me this this early. Is quite early there, and I appreciate the chat for also joining me this early. Clearly you enjoying the stream, so please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to find more. A lot of the cases that I've covered on this is available on playlist form. You can find that on the cards that I will add after this stream, as well as in the description. But going back to the stream, we were touching Liana
Mhm.
in regards to the gender dynamics.
Yeah.
In regards to this, because an article was written, literally just written yesterday, that was dissecting Major's career, basically.
Right.
And this article is by the New York Post. It looked at it's interesting because there are some names in there that I did not think would be there, like Matt Wright, for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
But I saw Lizzo's name there. Is she cancelled?
That Lizzo case. Well, multiple Lizzo cases now. Something's
Yeah.
holy God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has lost the the Lizzo case was on here again. Her career was too soon to tell. Juliana Magriles, who in my opinion is my good wife. It's my good wife. No one would change that. No one would change that opinion about it. But she was also on here, and she made some anti-Semitic, not anti-Semitic, in regards to what's going on with Palestine, etc. I'm not gonna go into that, but
Yeah.
And also Diddy.
Diddy's a shining example of you settle. It's a couple of news cycles, and it like that dude.
Let it go. Yeah.
There are so many accusations against that dude. They're all very similar. What the heck? But it didn't. Trials have become entertainment. And the fact that, okay, I mean, he's so rich that he can go away for a while, let people forget, come back. He's done it before. I mean, he's got a lengthy history of intersections with law enforcement, let's say. And people don't like, you remember, who was it, Meek Mills, who went
Right.
down in that there was a gun in the car or something like that when he was with J-Lo?
Oh,
There was
no,
something.
Meek Mill wasn't with J-Lo. Nicki Minaj. He was with Nicki Minaj, but
wasn't
no.
Meek Mill isn't Meek Mill the one who went to prison with
Yeah,
something with Diddy?
I didn't look into the case, but apparently he popped a wheelie. So that was
it was sorry, Shine, not Meek Mill.
okay. Yeah. It would be Shine because
it was Shine because it was 4 weapons charges and then bribing his driver. So I mean, and that was back in 1999.
Right.
So, we get a lot more hits in terms of domestic violence risk factors from Diddy than Jonathan Majors. But again, it's the branding as well.
Right.
I mean, Chris Brown is still recording music, and that one just
Yeah,
There's no doubt there, right? There's no doubt he did it. There's no doubt he beat the crap out of her. And people
he
attack
can
her,
sing, but he can sing.
but he can sing
Singing is
and can
different from
dance.
in regards to Jonathan Majors, I mean, Diddy's one was "It's Too Soon to Tell," and this guy has got a documentary being made about it
Yeah.
from 50 Cent, as reported here.
Oh, documentary
by-
beef. Oh,
yeah.
that's an
So
evolution, yeah.
but with Jonathan Majors, in regards to him being cancelled, they think his career is over, and because of Disney's
I
investment, etc.
I do not agree. It all depends on how he handles it.
Okay, so we will get back to that because I do
Mhm.
want to dissect more into that. But the one that I found very interesting here was Colleen Bellinger. She's also on the list,
Yeah.
and they are saying it's too soon to tell. And this is what I was what I was talking about in regards to gender dynamics and the racial
Mhm.
aspect, because this one does not make sense. Colleen Ballinger has had numerous children, like literal minors, all basically said that allegedly this point, because I don't want to get sued.
Right. Allegedly. Yeah.
Allegedly, she was a groomer, and pedo, and
Yep.
he made the best apology. In fact, all-time greatest
Oh, the ukulele
apology.
apology.
Yes, all time. You can't beat that. But she made that apology, and is she cancelled? It says too soon to tell, and I'm wondering, is it about the league? Like, what is the difference between Colleen Bellinger and Majors? Because as we were talking about with the charges that were
Yep.
set up against him, there is nothing to show that the jury believed that he was this abuser
Right.
for the entire duration of
Right.
the relationship, because there would have been intent
Yeah. Yeah.
in there, but they didn't find that. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering, in regards to his career being over, because they have already ruled him out. So we know how the media are,
Mhm.
setting it up to be okay. He's been found guilty. He is guilty. We are, one second. He's been found guilty. He is guilty. So we are going to basically run with that because he's got this conviction. Um, is this is this is this a fair no, scratch that, not fair. Is this an indictment that is I don't know how to ask this question, because what I'm basically trying to ask is in regards to Majors being found guilty, is it such an obliteration of his career? Because again, he's only been in the spotlight for about 2 years, I believe, since 2021, since Loki, really, and Lovecraft
Yeah.
Country. He was rising, and now he has this third degree assault murder guilt third degree not murder sorry third degree assault conviction against him. Is Why do you disagree with the publication there that his career is not over?
Before I answer that, do you want to read the super chat before I move on?
Oh, did not even know. Oh, Dre Mac. Hey, Dre Mac, thank you so much. Says peace and thank you so much for your $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings. And the MSM will try to destroy this brother for after the fact. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because that's what I'm trying to understand. Why why Colleen Ballinger seems to be receiving a much fairer assessment than Jonathan Majors, because I'm wondering.
There's a
Yeah.
lot going on there. One, okay, YouTuber versus the face of a franchise that
Right.
Hollywood doesn't like when you cost them money. And as I said on the past stream, they're both in trouble right now. And because she fucked the talent, jammed up the talent, got the talent ditched. So she's going to have, rightly or wrongly, I am not saying this should be, I'm just saying this is the way the business works.
Right.
But with him, the fact that everyone is um lining up to say, oh, he's done, he's done, he's done. There's a bunch of things going on there. One is that people are not following this trial terribly closely. They're looking at the headlines and that's it. And so, like, domestic abuser, Disney, forget it, he's done. They're not really looking at, and that's the opportunity there, is people don't know the details. They don't know the facts. And people love it when someone is sorry. They love redemption stories, and the media likes to tear someone down so they can build them back up again. It's all about generating headlines that they think people are going to click. And right now, if Jonathan Majors is done, is getting the headlines, they're going to go with that. I think there's another element to this, though. I mean, Colleen Bellinger, she works on her own,
Right.
right? Actors are part of very large teams of people. And, before the trial, Rolling Stone went around and found every aggrieved person Jonathan Majors had ever come into contact with. And it does seem like his method acting and the way he behaved on sets, maybe an underlying dynamic here. Again, I want to be really careful because I've heard Kevin Spacey is an absolute beast to work with as well. Jared Leto's awful to work with. Joaquin Phoenix is also another method actor that gets very, very strange. And this is when we get into race. And, I talked about the Yale masters, you know, and how that it sounds really great. The reality of it is he was taught the way people who can get away with a lot more than he can get away with are allowed to behave, as opposed to, what Legalbytes was saying about you have to take your weaknesses and you have to take your strengths and you have to be very aware with them and work with them. And
Right.
that is it's not fair. It is an opportunity to pivot the narrative on him. I mean, the shining example to me is Rob Lowe. Most people completely forget what Rob Lowe did back in the day.
Yeah, back in
I
the 80s,
mean,
isn't it? Was it back in the 80s?
Rob Lowe should be canceled a million times. He's the lead on a network like firefighter drama, right?
Wait. Maybe I don't know. Refresh my memory on Rob Lowe. What did he do?
I'm looking it up so I can get it. Okay. It was considered a sex tape scandal back in 1998,
Yeah, I know I
but
heard this.
it was him having sex with two women. One was 22, one was 16. He was 24 years old, a 16-year-old. Now, the age of consent.
Oh, this is why. What's her name? I forgot. Damn. Stranger Things. She dated.
Who? Millie
Well,
Bobby Brown
no,
or
no, no, no,
Sadie
no.
Sink?
No, older.
Winona
She's
Ryder?
50 now. Winona Ryder. Thank you so much. This
Okay.
is why. Oh, this makes sense because this is why she was denying dating him. So maybe this is the context behind. I never knew
Yeah.
this, but
So
I knew she
age of
denied dating with him.
age of consent in Georgia was 14 at the time. However, you have to be 18 years old to
Mm,
consent to being recorded having sex. And this was during he was a surrogate for Michael Dukakis. The videotape came out the night before the Democratic National
right,
Convention
right.
back in the day. And Rob Lowe went on Saturday Night Live and made light of the fact that he got a 16-year-old to shoot porn with him.
Wait,
And
this is before we go dive into this because of the racial
yeah,
element. I'm gonna put a pin on this. We're gonna dive right back into it. But I want to go back in regards to the redemption story that you were speaking about in regards to how the media likes to tear someone down,
right,
and build them back up. Do you think that
right.
that's why the media reporting was very skewed in regards to this? Because again, like I said, it's without TMZ, I don't think anyone would have seen the chase video because Oh, and the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, those two outlets are the only outlets I remember. ABC, you know, all those major publications that were covering the trial, Rolling Stone, all those things. They never. It was like
Yeah.
a media blackout, and like I brought out earlier, the alcoholism was not even mentioned or anything
Yeah.
like that. They really made. They made so much in regards to this Texas, etc. Do you
Yeah.
believe that they were playing into this because they wanna, so that when he comes back, they can twist it around and, you know, really redeem his image that way?
I don't think they're playing a long game in that regard. Do I think they sensationalize the heck out of it? Oh yeah. Do I think that they were deliberately it's the way I will put it is when you work, because I've worked in entertainment reporting. I've worked in hard
Right.
news,
Yeah.
I've worked in entertainment, and there's this culture that actors, singers, dancers, they are commodities. People
Mm.
stop thinking about them as human beings. And there is
Interesting.
this I got to really watch my language here cuz I could drop a hot take really easily right now. There does seem to be a dehumanization of Jonathan Majors here. They are not treating him like a troubled person who was suicidal. They are treating him like a beast who was menacing, excuse me, ma'am, is this man bothering you? Kind of thing. And that's the whole vibe I'm getting from this. Like I'm reading it and um my first you saw my reaction with the verdict. I said, okay, this means, the good news is the jury didn't believe her that he's a serial abuser, but the
Yeah, they can
media
use
did not
this.
care. They
Right.
had the headlines set up. If he was guilty on anything, the headline was going to be guilty of guilty of domestic violence or guilty of domestic assault, right? And
Mm.
it's because that all that stuff is still highly searched right now. Keep in mind, there's a great amount of interest, and people who have their own issues in their own backgrounds
Mm.
want to be on the right side of things like this. The chat mentioned Jeremy Renner and Josh Brolin.
Yeah,
Those
yeah, I remember that.
cases
Yeah.
did not have a criminal charge.
Right.
And, we're getting into, and then I want to be real careful because people get really, really spicy when I talk about this. You know, you think about the stereotypes again of how we see Black men in the US, and Jonathan Majors is the fact that he grew up on a military base surrounded by criminal elements, has openly talked about the violence in his past. Now people made it sound like he was arrested for assault. He was never arrested for assault. He was arrested for shoplifting when he was a minor.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
But
No, because I've seen YouTubers do the same. Like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna
No,
name
no, no.
names,
Yeah.
but like,
Yeah.
but it was. I was like, that doesn't sound right. I
Yeah.
mean, like yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
apparently, those records were expunged. But sorry, continue.
yeah, but shoplifting is not a violent crime.
Yeah.
And so there's this hyper visibility element. But again, the media can also go and um pull footage from say Creed 3 where he's like this guy who just got out of prison and he's like like a rhino ready to charge and that was the character. But it's really easy to create these images of menacing Black man scare white suburban America for a bit to get clicks because fear makes people consume. I also do think that there is a bit of a um
A bit of
how in the Depp Heard case
you're right.
the media, the corporate media got miffed that the internet scooped them. on it, that they didn't think it was going to be that big deal. It blew up.
He really blew up,
Similarly, similarly, the Jonathan Majors case was not a big deal until the internet was
Up
interested
on
in
it.
it. And
Oh,
every time that happens, there seems to be this grudge. And I do think there was and I don't think this is deliberate. I've just seen this so many times with progressives or liberals. Like, how dare you suggest you're racist? We're going to bury this guy to show how not racist we are. No, we just support women, right? I've seen it. I've seen it so many times.
yeah,
And,
no, no,
the,
yeah. Go
you
on, sorry, go
know,
on, go on. Go on.
the chat mentions that Josh Brolin was charged. Yes, he was charged. So there was a news cycle when he was charged.
Right.
With Jonathan Majors, it's the same thing. Diddy was charged, and then it was settled, and it went away. It was
Right.
2 news cycles. That's it, gone. The problem with fighting these things in the courts is there was the one when he was arrested, then he's arraigned. It's another news set with photos. They can take the pictures of him going in and out of the courtroom. What's Megan Good wearing today? All that's the gold Bible, the gold leaf Bible was such a detail. I have 3 Bibles. They're all gold leafed.
But yeah,
Gold
no,
leaf
no,
Bibles
yeah.
are not uncommon, but the gold leaf, it's like, what does this Bible have
Because-
rims?
Yeah.
Does the Bible have grills? Like, it's
Yeah.
so like a lot of Bibles have gold leaf. One of my copies of the Torah is silver leaf. It needs to up its bling. Like, these details are just the Josh Brolin had 1 news cycle. Jonathan Majors is at 4 or 5 now. Right? And the other thing about Josh Brolin is that, let's face it, he was buried under all that makeup. And with Jeremy Renner at that point, no one gave a shit about Hawkeye.
That, I mean, yeah. No. You're right,
It's
because
not fair. It's not fair. The thing I have to understand about entertainment media and the business of entertainment is how cynical it is. I knew about Josh Whedon's abuse. One of the people he abused told me. I knew for 10 years. We knew about Bryan Singer. We knew about Kevin Spacey. People talk, but you can't be the one to talk openly, because then the person who told you is going to get in trouble, going to get found out, going to get in trouble, because you damaged the franchise, you ruined his life. And so no one wants to be the person that outs someone before they're ready to talk. And with Whedon, it was the thing his ex-wife wrote, or current wife, soon to be ex-wife at the time, wrote, and that just broke the seal. And then everybody.
Based on what you just said right now, do you think that this is why the reporters were going so hard on Majors, because they feel exactly as you put there, that there is that censorship, if you will. So with Grace being the recipient, or the alleged recipient of this whole thing, do you think that that's why they were going so hard to bat for her, even if the evidence was, not there? If I'm being honest with you, it just wasn't there. Do you think that could contextualize why there was such a blackout on the evidence that wasn't favorable towards her?
I think that there's a bunch of things going on with Jonathan Majors. One is, he did have a history of being temperamental and not, and this is not me saying he should have been nicer. He should have smiled more. He should have, yes or no, ma'am. It's charged, but unfortunately in America, there is still that expectation, and he might have not played the game real well. And entertainment reporters, if he was a dick to them, the knives could have been out. People talk. But there is also that reality of one video, right? To the whole zero tolerance on it's trendy to believe women right now.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
that's completely fair. So back to Rob Lowe for a second, because we did I did go on this little tangent to kind of uh get a bit of info around that blackout, because it was just in my head. But thank
Yeah.
you for satisfying that curiosity. Sorry.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate more on the racial bias that you're about to touch on that, in regards to Rob Lowe?
Yeah, I mean, again, this goes all the way back to the Fatty Arbuckle trial back in the day and violating your brand, you
Right.
know.
What's funny?
Um
Okay, go on.
yeah, well, because Fatty Arbuckle was this nice, cuddly guy, kind of family-friendly entertainment, and he was having sex with prostitutes, one of whom died, and he was accused of it. It he didn't do it. He was found to be totally exonerated. There was a health condition, but it was the fact that people could not see him in the same way before. And I do think that there was, I don't know if you followed the social media between Loki, the end of Loki season 1, where Jonathan Majors showed up and just blew everyone away with like 5 to 15 minutes of just epic at the end of that series leading up to Ant-Man. There was this whole, all right, Kang's coming. There's a portion of the population and a portion of the entertainment media who feels left out of the Black Panther phenomenon. Stuff like, The Color Purple broke records for a Christmas Day release. And then Jonathan Majors was part of that. I was really surprised that people were really, really looking forward to seeing Kang just kill Ant-Man in Quantumania. And there was some disappointment that didn't happen because they wanted him to be strong. They wanted him to be powerful. And Jonathan Majors has always had that uneasy relationship with masculinity. And I think what people want him to be and what he wants to do are not the same thing. And, we were talking about Grace Jabbari crying a lot in court and that being treated very sympathetically. And I looked at this going, the emotions don't really match the intensity of what's described to be going on here. Again, not recorded. So that's a bit of conjecture. But Jonathan Majors shed a couple tears during closing arguments, and the mockery in the press that he cried. The treatment of her crying and him crying was very, very, very different. And that is gender, that is race.
This is very interesting, because we talked about benevolent sexism
Benevolent
on the,
sexism. Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, on the previous stream, which was the verdict stream that we did, and you done a masterful job in like breaking it down
Yeah.
there, but we didn't go into that much detail. Based on what you just brought out, this seems like it playing a part with this case, because I don't understand why his crying, which was, in my opinion, it resonated more, because we've heard the audio. It's not like he's making it up. We've heard the audio and the text messages in regards
Mhm.
to him being afraid of going to the police. Regardless of your interpretation of those text messages, I really think, because of the fact that the text messages was on the 22nd, and this was the same event
Yeah.
that he was venting about, coming back. I've heard so many nuanced takes. People were like, look, he could have been afraid of a Me Too situation where she's bringing back a stranger, because he said that on the audio, but this was never amplified by the
The
press. It was
the
just, yeah.
the
So
context of those we're talking about the series of text messages where she wants to go to the doctor and
Right.
he's trying to talk her out of it, and then
Right.
the Michelle Obama Coretta Scott King recording. That's
Yes.
what we're talking about, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, DV aside, because a lot of people believe this was a pattern of abuse, because we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that. But the benevolence sexism that you were talking about on the last stream, can you please
Yeah.
elaborate more with these examples in mind?
Yeah. Okay, so benevolent sexism is the reality that people have gendered stereotypes. I talked a little bit about the difference in perceived honesty between men and women. Women are that is an example of women being inherently more honest. It's not true. That is an example of a seemingly positive attitude towards women that goes along traditional gender stereotypes. Women are more moral, women are smell better, more refined, classier, more caring, more nurturing, but also fragile and need to be protected from men. So please stay out of society where it's dangerous for your own good. That's basically the long-term effects. And what we find is that, well, a lot of the people in, what's known as sort of the manosphere end of the internet think, well, that proves there's a bias against men and a pro-women bias in society. But it's actually not true, because what that means is women are put up on pedestals where they have farther to fall when they do commit any sort of transgression. And examples like the disastrous campaign that Hillary
Right.
Clinton ran. They did not factor that in. The whole Elizabeth Warren native ancestry thing. And the thing is, you do not see the same assumption of greater virtue with Black women as you do white, Asian, women who are seen to be more feminine, as opposed to, the Sojourner Truth, ain't I a woman stereotype. And that is undeniable. We have to factor that in every time we look at public perception of something, because, well, hostile sexism, which are all the negative stereotypes about women, they're lying, they'll take your money, they're manipulative, all that stuff. um well, that is far more common in men than women. Benevolent sexism, the numbers are fairly level across the board. Women have internalized these wrong opinions. And that's the important thing to remember. This idea that women are more virtuous, moral, nurturing, yet fragile and in need of protecting. These are not true. These are not innate characteristics. They are stereotypes. But women are, it's like within a point, as likely to believe this as men. And this is so woven into our society um, that it's really, really hard for a lot of people to see past that. So when you call somebody on it, then they get very reactive. Right. And I think that there's a lot of that, because you've got the Jonathan Majors was a clash of America's unique problems with anti-Black racism crashing into the serious problems. And it's a sticky problem. Domestic violence, all of the money, all of the attention, all of the Me Too. It hasn't moved the needle that much. And there's a lot of people who are advocates in that space who, we're finding out that what we've been collectively doing hasn't been working, and they don't want to let that go, because they've been out, making and raising money off things like the Duluth model. And, the Duluth model is a widely adopted tool. It's not perfect. And what we know is that a big part of the reason historically that the primary perpetrators of violence or domestic violence are men, and the primary victims of it are women, that has to do with economics historically. Women couldn't leave abusive situations because women didn't work outside the home historically. Obviously, our society is changing rapidly in that regard. And because of that, we expect to see and we have seen the statistics changing. Just a few years back, it was 1 in 6 men were victims of abuse. Now it's probably 1 in 4. Now women, it's still 1 in 3, right? And this is when we get into what do we mean by abuse, so on and so forth. But the idea that women are inherently, meaning with no social programming whatsoever, inherent, we pop out of the womb more virtuous and cuddly and moral, it's not so. And it's very important to know it's not so. And it's very important to see how that doesn't just boomerang around and affect men, but also this is why we have issues with political representation by women. This is why we don't have more female CEOs. This is why it's harder for women to start businesses. This is why venture capitalists are less likely to back women. It's all this idea that anything involving aggression is not someone's rightful place. And if we look at something like the whole Gina Carano situation with being canceled for a factual statement on, I think it was Instagram, there's a shining example, right? She presents not typically, she's muscular, right? And so there was a real, how dare you want sympathy feeling surrounding her, when you do defy the meek little let me protect you little woman thing. Everybody wanted her to be this thing she was not. And I do think that, and there are still people who will not let that go. There will still people who still misrepresent what she actually said. And I think that was one that maybe it was the behind the scenes stuff other than, and a pattern of behavior.
What
But
did she say? Out of curiosity, I actually don't know about this one, and I'm ashamed to admit it.
okay, there was a long period of her battling people on social media. It started with her saying my pronouns are beep boop bop or something like that. She was trying to make an R2D2 joke, but people got upset, and there was this back and forth because she is conservative. She's always been conservative. I do not think she is a hateful person. I think she expresses herself awkwardly. But I mean, Pedro Pascal has a trans sister, and as far as we know, they all got on really well. Carl Weathers defended her early on, and it was a comment about the Holocaust that eventually got her canceled, and she was accused of comparing modern day conservatives to the persecution that the Jews during the Holocaust faced.
Yeah, that would do
And that
that would do the trick.
wasn't actually there, right? That wasn't actually there. What she was saying is it doesn't start big. It starts small.
Starts small. Okay.
And I think that was just, there's this belief that fame is a privilege, that having a part on Star Wars or a part in the MCU is this big privilege, and you should just be happy to be there, and that means you should have no problems and all that stuff. The truth is that amount of attention amplifies everything, trauma in the background, everything, right?
This is very interesting because of the point that you just put out, and in regards to putting them in it sounds like they put that this benevolent sexism puts women in a box that they ultimately cannot even escape from what you've broken down here. Of course, it's a different example in regards to Gina Carano because it's based on comments, but going back to the black woman comparison, with benevolent sexism, I do want you to elaborate more on this. You don't have to use the the example of Lizzo that I'm about to bring up here, because I kind of saw it. I kind of saw it because she was already called an abuser, and
Yeah.
people were fighting me, and I'm like, hold on a second. You're telling me that Depp could go through a case, win it, slam dunk, basically, and he is still called the abuser, and Amber Heard is still mainstream media is predicting Amber Heard, but Lizzo just get accused, nothing actually happens, and she's labeled as an abuser already. Like, there is something like that is weird. That is weird.
Well,
The person was
also,
fighting me. The person was fighting me, saying, I was like, why are you fighting this? How do you not see it? So, like, can you elaborate more on that?
well, with Lizzo, if you actually read the complaint, the really bad stuff was done by the management and another employee, like the belittling and all that stuff. They're just treating Lizzo as sort of a figurehead who, you know, obviously Lizzo likes her sex parties and, racy stuff. But attendance was always optional. And I
Right,
do think there is a bit of a how dare you regarding Lizzo. And I think that in that case, because she was her whole brand is about acceptance, that and feeling good about yourself at any size, all that stuff. I think
right.
unfortunately some people joined up on her tour or did work for her expecting her to be their mom or an auntie and not the boss. That's what I'm reading there, because the tour did offer time off to deal with anxiety. The dancer in question refused the time off. They didn't take it. So, if they'd taken the time off and then they replaced them after telling them, no, please do what you need to, that would be slam dunk. But if you don't take the production up on it, how can you say you were mistreated when they were offered? Lizzo lost her shit on one of them because they recorded her without her knowledge or consent. And even if that's legal, if I'm a celebrity who has been, she plays the flute and it's a national fucking scandal, I wouldn't want my staff recording me. I'd fire that person too. That's a violation of trust, right? But that's not the way the media spun it. The media spun it is, oh, fluffy black lady likes sex. How dare she? That's really the sense. It is shame. It is who is allowed to be seen as sexual, who is allowed to be seen as emotional. And that intersection of race and gender is very powerful. I mean, we look at the way Megan Thee Stallion was treated during the whole Tory Lanez thing, where she was shot and she didn't get the same embrace by the media that Amber Heard or a more proper victim. And again, it's because you listen to her music. It is not little baby voice like Grace Jabbari has. Like, oh, I'm so small. It doesn't matter that I'm sloshed. I have
That
such
is
a tiny little voice. I have such a tiny little voice. I couldn't possibly be doing anything wrong. Oh, cry, cry, cry. You can't
you
even
sound like
hire me. I have
listen
tiny baby voice.
listen, by you saying that, an image just popped into my head. Popeye,
Olive
Olive.
oil?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Olive.
Save me,
Yeah,
Popeye.
he looks.
Help!
Grace Jabbari, actually, like the ways that how skinny she is, it actually does remind me of olive oil,
Yeah,
and this
but
kind of no,
Grace Jabbari,
yeah.
Grace Jabbari, it's not that just that she's slim, right? It's that she looks fragile, and that plays into
Like
those
olive.
benevolent sexist attitudes. Like, you look at someone like, I don't know, I watched Rebel Moon a few days ago, and you look
Mm,
at the woman, another dancer, who's the lead in that, and her shoulders are like, you look at Perdita Weeks, who plays, Higgins on the new Magnum PI. She's teeny, but it's like, whoa, her shoulders, her arms. It's not just that she's slim. It's that she looks like she'd break in a strong wind. And that matters, unfortunately. From a purely personal point, the crying, I think that's something that has been really, really misexamined. There's another side to that, because of course the media was like, oh, this is so difficult for her that she broke down in tears again and again and again and had to run from the courtroom. It's like Legalbytes was saying earlier, they knew this was coming, right? If she's
Right.
going to stand trial, you know, think about, I know with me, I'm a crier. And so if I'm talking about, if I'm angry, I cry. If I'm it's just the go-to. It's a hormone thing. We can't super control it. But I'm thinking, if I were telling a story that I had heard again and again and again, would I be that emotional?
Hmm.
Probably not. If I was watching a video I'd probably seen numerous times, would I be that emotional? Probably not.
So you believe
That
that she played it up? You believe she played into that stereotype and the cameras? Well, not cameras, but knowing
I
that there would be favorable
well,
reporting.
I think, as one person in chat said, weaponized fragility. I think there's a few things going on. One, yeah, they deliberately, she's not an actress, so they deliberately put her in a position to be fragile. Two, she's an out of control addict, couldn't show up to court drunk, and so she was actually in withdrawal. Or the excessive drinking could be a sign, and this is all speculative, but this is stuff we should talk about because we're talking about benevolent sexism.
Mm.
There's some sort of, and Legalbytes touched on this. There is some psychiatric disorder going on there that makes pain incredibly intense, and the huge amounts of alcohol she consumes are like a self-medicating thing, because it's not just alcohol, it's pills, and it's the I saw totally different things from those conversations that were released. I have to go to the doctor. I'm in so much pain. I can't sleep. I can't sleep. I need pain pills. That sounded to me like someone who, you know, it there's more than one type of pain going on there. And
Oh, yeah. Because people did point this out. Like you could have, if you needed just painkillers, you could have just. But it sounded like she needed morphine or something
well,
like
I
a
need something stronger.
strong. Yeah.
Right? I
So
need something stronger.
yeah, that's
And I saw him
and
trying
which
to
makes sense.
not,
Because, no, this makes sense because he's like, no, don't go. Wait, why do you need like you've just been you
well,
drunk? Why do you
that
need?
that that
Yeah,
whole thing struck me as him thinking, I have this troubled partner. I'm in the public eye.
yeah.
People are going to see her condition, and that's it's the bad example for the community thing, and I do think there was
Oh,
some guilt on his part that he's dating a girl. If you're Jonathan Majors and you have to ask your girlfriend, I know I said this in the last stream too, you have to ask your girlfriend if she knows who Coretta Scott King is.
end it.
What are you doing,
Yeah,
man?
end it, end it
And
real
he's
quick.
not a stupid guy. He is a very smart guy. On some level, he had to know this, right? And it really seemed to me like he was stuck.
Uh,
And that's when we get into the whole suicide thing. And the really, Legalbytes pointed out there was some real toxicity in that relationship. And from a perspective of domestic abuse, and this is where I think he does have a path back, you know,
mm,
because right now the whole paradigms, like I said to you, we were talking about doing this stream.
mm,
Domestic violence is not solved in a paradigm of shame and guilt, or blame and reasonable doubt, right? Guilt and reasonable doubt. It's not solved there, because we know that the vast majority of these cases, especially when it's emotional, spiritual, or economic abuse, they don't go to court, right? This will not be solved in courts. There's this big gap of lawful and awful behavior.
right.
And it won't be solved there.
Right.
What's Yeah, oh, you brought this up as well,
No,
but
no, no, no. I will literally get to that.
mhm,
I just wanted to say in regards to the comment that was made by, in regards to the comment that was made by Donnell, we said kind of said that an article should be written about you guys. An article was written. They did. I don't like they. I'm not gonna say which publication, but I was contacted for to have an article, and many other YouTubers that were covering this. This goes back to what you were saying earlier in regards to how dare the internet,
yeah,
do this. But it wasn't just this one publication. There were other publications, but the one I did see was the Daily, according to the Daily Feast, because they're vultures that they are. Anyway, yeah, so they wrote an article in regards to how the internet was comparing this to Debt v. Heard, and all of, like, as if it was a bad thing to even draw comparisons or have an opinion or takes, and and I wanted to juxtapose this, your comment in regards to Lizzo and black women and racial
yep,
bias. We saw in the Depp case how that really the treatment of the media even after winning the case, and this goes
yeah,
back to your comment in regards to the media loving redemption stories, but
mhm,
this also beautifully juxtaposed what you were talking about earlier with benevolent sexism, because the media just discarded, like, they try to make it seem like the verdict was tainted because the jurors, etc., all of those things, the juror could not miss social media, all of those things.
right.
They really doubled down on Amber Heard. Is this an example of benevolent sexism and racial bias coexisting?
Yes, I mean,
Because
I
the reason why I asked it that way is because sometimes people can get lost with and say, "Oh no, there was no racism. It was just sexism." And some people can say, "Oh no, it was more sexism than it was. Racial bias does exist, yes, but it was more sexism." They might
in
downplay it like that, but I wanted to ask it like this so that I can get a better understanding
mhm.
of the coexistence of biases, because some people, because people
Yeah,
tend to downplay all of it. Sorry, go
yeah.
on.
Well, I mean, this is unfortunately a lot of the terminology, that the tools that were developed to examine this have been ruined by it breaking containment from academia, and being misused, because there was this concept of intersectionalism or intersectionality, and it's the way different parts of people's identity intersect to create various systems of privilege and oppression. I apologize for the terminology. I'm just citing the toolkit here. But privilege and oppression that can change based on the circumstances, right? And with the whole Johnny Depp thing, um, there's a shining example of his addictions seem to matter more in the eyes of the media than hers, because there's an example of you go right back to the Seneca Falls Convention, which was the first big, feminist convention in the US. They didn't call it at that point, but it was suffrage. And the suffrage was the one they're like, yeah, maybe not so much. But they had all these demands at the Seneca Falls Convention. And one of them was that women be seen as equally culpable under the law to the men in their lives, specifically their husbands, because at the time, if a woman committed a crime with her husband, she was automatically seen as less morally culpable. He made her do it. And that was assumed, as opposed to something that had to be reasonably proven. And that's one of those ones that all the way back then, we're talking like women's suffrage, first wave feminism here, late 19th century, they recognized that was a problem. And, coming forward to present day, and the whole point that Sojourner Truth was making at the time was that Black women were not perceived as women because they did manual labor, and that was seen as a natural order of things instead of something that they were, didn't have much of a choice. They were forced into it, and that perception has continued to this day, that someone like Angela Bassett makes a face at an award show, and that becomes the big talk for or against.
Right.
There's this concept of hypervisibility with Black people, but Black women, it is gender, it is race, it is socioeconomic class, it is a lot of things, it is addiction. It's like I said, who is allowed to have certain behaviors and who is considered, trying to rise above their station or being uppity. And I definitely think that they're, with Johnny Depp, he got up there and just sort of charmed everybody. I think just by the sheer self-effacing quality and the fact that he sat there while, the giant bags of marijuana and things like that were showed to him in an attempt to shame him, right? Everybody saw that for what it was. And he was just like, yep, that's a lot of marijuana, and he's like, yep, I did that. And yep, I did that. And yep, I did that. And because he just sat there and took the drubbing, I think he got a lot of sympathy, not only from the jury, but also in the minds of the public, where, okay, the guy was humiliated in front of the world. We see that as a certain amount of punishment in and of itself. With Jonathan Majors, we have not heard from him yet. And that's an opportunity. When he breaks the silence, what he says is going to matter intensely. I still think there is a PR opportunity. It's going to require that humbling, which puts him in a very, very dicey spot, because of the expectations on him, because there's this expectation now of, oh, go away and just accept that you are a monster. You said it yourself. It's in your text. The fact that was seen as an admission of guilt instead of intense self-loathing in a moment where he probably felt quite trapped by his circumstances. And the thing I don't want to come out of this greater picture, we have to walk and chew gum at the same time with a lot of this stuff, right? And we have to recognize that more men die by suicide than women. That men are less likely to tell someone, they're more likely to complete suicide. And I know we have to be careful because of YouTube's monetization rules here, so I will be brief.
Right.
But
unaliving.
Yeah. What was it? Pruned from the timeline. I like that on the last stream. So prune for the timeline. We'll use a Kang reference. We'll use a TVA reference. We know men are more likely to successfully prune.
Right.
We know this. This is fact. We also know that yes, threats of suicide and suicidal tendencies and depression very frequently do exist in domestic violence situations. And us as bystanders, we cannot determine which is which based on a handful of texts, right? We don't know if that was just a really dark moment for him, because if you think about it, he's under intense pressure. He's trying to prepare for this role. She comes in drunk with her friends. He gets totally derailed. He's like, "Oh my God, every performance I do matters." He put all this pressure on himself, and she's boozing it up with people he doesn't know. If I'm him, I don't want a bunch of total strangers in my house because they can go to the tabloids about anything. All this is totally understandable from his perspective. And yet, what we get is this idea that he was some monster for wanting to set boundaries in his personal professional space. And that is bad, 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 bad. We can talk about how he did it. But no, you have the right to say, if you're going to go out drinking, please come in quiet. If you want to be drunk and rowdy with your friends, please stay there or in a hotel overnight. You absolutely have the right to do that. That is not abusive behavior. What she did, disrupting his work, not respecting his personal boundaries, that is abuse. That is abuse. But for some reason, the whole party girl, woohoo, I'm so crazy, is seen as this female empowerment when it's really not. It's really not. When your partying is getting in the way of your partner's work, that's a problem.
That's actually a very good point that you brought out, and we will definitely explore that point in finer detail. Yeah, we don't. By the way, I just want to read out this chat because it really did warm my heart. Wonder Woman 780 says this is a great live with nuance and different perspective. Thank you so much, Heinz. And I love that because this is the goal of my channel. I literally try to have these talks because there is so much you can glean from this case, and I want to sift through all of that BS, I'm gonna call it, that has been thrown in there without context, without anything, because what we're about to get into will show you what they should have reported or how this case should be reported, but is usually missed by this activist or this so-called activists, I'll just say, when they are reporting on cases like this and try to have an opinion on cases like this. It really does go realign back with Liana's point in regards to benevolent sexism. But I appreciate every single one of you that are on this live. To be honest, do like and share with your friends if you do value everything that's coming out of this live. Consider sending a super chat or a super thanks if you're watching this on replay. But I honestly, whatever there is really no pressure, but I really do appreciate Liana for taking time out of her day to to discuss this, as well as Legalbytes who took time out of her day to, she was amazing. Like, I really love how much we really dived into the nuances of this case. But to go back to what you were saying in regards to how, especially with the talk of unaliving oneself, because there are cases where that threat is very credible, and this is one case. You sent me this case.
I sent you this one as a comparison because this is a grisly case.
I will say, I actually thought this case was maybe too extreme to compare to, and then Liana, like, was like, no, this is the reality.
Yeah,
All
this
good, because
is surprisingly common in terms of how intense, and this is a more in terms of using suicide as suicidal threats, unaliving threats, as a precursor or as part of domestic abuse. This is what it looks like when we
um
see it. So can they see this now?
yeah, I hope so. Yeah, they should be able to see it. They
Yeah,
should be able
can
to. I will zoom in because I'm going to read part of the article. I think it's very important here. The part
Yeah,
of the
this
article
is
I'm going
a
to read.
horrific case.
So
So
this was
if
written. This was literally 2 days ago.
yeah,
So, and no one. I'm not hearing anything about this. You would think this would Shane. I don't like her, so I'm just gonna say it. Shane Roundtree, because she made a big deal of the audios and the texts. But I'm like, okay, I'll get off my palliative. I'll get my palliative. But basically,
so
this is
an
basically
influencer was shot
yes,
in
basically,
front of her 8-year-old child
yeah.
by her estranged partner, who was
Um,
later found dead in an apparent suicide. Yeah.
Right, and the judge had granted her a restraining order against him.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
most people know restraining orders do not do much in cases like this, because if you scroll down, she was known as Bunny Bontiti on Instagram.
yep,
There was a period, there was a rapid escalation here from, I believe, December 8th. There it is. December 8th, they got the
yep.
restraining order. He showed up, threatened to kill himself in
Right
front
here,
of the
right
kids.
here. This is
Yeah.
this
He
really this
did it like 3 or 4 times within a period of 4 days, within a period of a month. He really should have been put on some sort of 72-hour psychiatric hold,
hold.
and
Yes,
this is what you tend to see: apathy for both sides. The police underestimate the threat. They underestimate how much distress the male partner is in, and this was an absolutely preventable, like, he was hiding in the garage, and when she wouldn't talk to him, he threatened to prune himself. She called 911 multiple times. He was not supposed to have weapons, and
right,
this is a shining example of this is this is much more common, the apathy of the system, than what we see in, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, or the Jonathan Majors thing.
right,
The media likes to take a few high profile cases and seem to care very, very, very much. And it really does paper over the apathy that the average domestic abuse survivor of any gender gets by the system.
right,
So, this is, and I was warned in the case of me being stalked that getting a protective order might actually provoke her, might actually provoke the stalker. I was talked out of it by the judge, saying, if she is quiet, if she has stopped following you, she's just destroying your reputation online, then maybe it's better, because we can't stop her from talking. It's not a gag,
right,
but as long as she's staying away from you, this may escalate it. This may provoke it. So even when you go and use the tools, the
right,
people within the system know these tools don't actually keep you safe. And the idea that I was provoking her with a restraining order, and of course, because I listened to the judge and didn't go through with it, she's like, see, she dropped the hearing. It's proof she's lying. Right? Like, there is no real recourse, there is no real protection from the courts when it's real abuse. The One of the major factors with DV is very few close friends and family connections, because when someone is isolated, then it's easier to set a narrative. It's easier to say things about him. One of the things that was treated as proof of Jonathan Major's guilt is the fact that Grace Jabbari was trash talking him to his manager. And she said, "Oh, I don't like the way he talked to her." The way it was painted in the media was that proof he's abusive towards women. The relationship between talent and a manager is a totally different thing. And if I were in that position and my partner and my manager were trashing me behind my back, I'd probably fire the manager and maybe dump the partner.
Right.
Because why are they going to each other instead of going to him?
Right.
That's something called triangulation we talk about in terms of narcissistic abuse. And does that mean that he was just a glowing angel and she was the only one that did a bad? No, that doesn't happen, right? These were two people that the sense I get is these were two people who were very lonely and who desperately wanted love and don't have the emotional vocabularies, or didn't at the time, to actively seek it. And so he was very clearly hoping she would become something she wasn't. And I think that
Right.
she had very um unrealistic attitudes about the relationship as well. I mean, that whole thing of, we did everything together for 3 months and then something changed. And it's like, yeah, the relationship matured. That can't last. Like that's why when, you were asking about past trauma
Yes. Yes.
before, that point to me suggests something is very wrong in terms of expectations there, right? One,
Ah.
you're dating an actor
Yeah.
who is a method actor. Yes, he's suddenly going to change on a dime. That's what method acting is. Also, the idea that you are just going to be each other's everything forever is something we romanticize, but it's actually a very unhealthy relationship dynamic. It can't last.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. And to go back to what you were talking about, because this is to go back to what you were talking about in regards to what the example that we brought up in regards to the police failure in handling
Yeah.
these real cases,
Yeah.
and how, because there seemed to be a massive departure, because I always refer back to the Harvey Weinstein. I think they done the right thing there in how they handle that to then get recourse through the system. But
Right.
it's as if, okay, let's continue with the real activism, and really try and bring changes, because this is what they should be focusing on, not comparing Texas to do with, I'm going, like, it doesn't, when you look at both cases of this, like, that we brought out, it does not even look remotely as if Jonathan Majors was being emotionally abusive, because that's what emotional abuse is. It doesn't look like it. It looks like someone was breaking down, and she
I
was, but
this is
I'm trying to
also,
go on.
I think that, I mean, the last, sorry to interrupt, but talking about kind of race, and this is why I wish I consider this more racial ignorance than racism. It's not hateful, it's just a
Okay.
lack of understanding. I grew up in an Afro-Caribbean neighborhood, so I was socialized in code switching, right? I grew up
Um,
on it. The fact that the way Black people talk to each other is not the same as the way Black people talk to white people. It's certainly not the way white people talk to each other. And there was certain, like, talking about the plan, and this is not the plan. And there were certain terminologies Jonathan Majors used that come out of coaching. There's certain language that they're like, oh, that's proof he's controlling her. No, he's talking about staying intentional. He's talking about, we want to build things together. And the fact that that was used as proof of guilt somehow,
That's
when
insane.
what I got the sense he was trying to do is he was trying to unsuccessfully set a boundary with her while stopping her from, because they were both spiraling, right? I mean, she's sitting there whimpering, I'm sorry, and
And he
we
was
we
worried
have
about the press attention that could come from this,
well,
from the whole thing.
we also have to,
From
and
what I
this
gather.
is not this is just a fact. We have to couch everything in that recording with the fact that she knew there was a recording and he didn't.
Okay,
you know
fair point.
and
Fair point.
and and even then, so there is going to be a bit of a performative aspect to her responses. But there's a shining example. We talked about that on the last stream, that the media said he was yelling. Anybody listens to that recording knows he's raising his voice at the beginning, but he's being as patient as I think anybody could be under the circumstances there.
Right.
And I think he was, and this is again, he might have been better off there not speaking to her like she was a child. But I do think that part of the dynamic of their relationship was an expectation that she be coddled. And that's toxic. That's
Absolutely.
that benevolent sexism again, right?
Right.
This idea that the man is supposed to provide, the man is supposed to take care of. There's an allusion to that very, very normalized form of emotional abuse where if you're mad at somebody, you deny them affection. He has to give her love, he has to show her love, and then she just, when it's time to be reciprocated, she just blocks him out. We don't think of that as a very common form of abuse that women perpetuate against men. Some men do against women, but this is one that goes both ways, right? We don't think about that as abuse because so many of us saw our parents do that. I grew up in a
No, that's
household where affection
yeah.
and validation were withheld punitively, and it teaches you that love is conditional, right? As opposed to the healthy thing where I love you, I'm mad at you right now, I still love you. Those moments where you're not happy with your partner, it's very, very important for both of you to focus on the fact that the love is still there. If love is a cookie that you just pull away from the other person every
That's
time you're
abuse.
mad at
That is
them,
abuse.
that's abuse. That is
Yeah,
abuse.
when you put it like that, yes, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm gonna do this, but I won't hit you today if you
Yeah.
behave. That is
Yeah.
like that is abuse, and we're gonna. I'm gonna close out on this because we have been streaming for 2 hours, 20 minutes now. But I'm going to close out on this, and I want to talk about touch a little bit on attachment styles. And we don't know
Yeah.
anything about anything about Jonathan Majors or Grace Jabbari in regards to their past, etc., because that wasn't really established. But based on what came out in regards to the texts, etc., what do you think they could be? First of all, what is attachment styles, and second of all, how did it play a part in regards to the personalities that we saw manifest throughout the trial? What do you think?
The theory of attachment styles, it's how you approach relationships based on your upbringing. So the theory is that these form very, very early in life, and the way you were treated when you were pre-verbal, so under the age of 4, say 3, 4 years old. That time where we don't really have really clear memories. Some people claim they do, but most people don't. Um, so what you consider normal based on the treatment you were given from your primary caregivers goes forward in life to what you expect from your relationships and how you attach to other people. Are you attaching in a way that um, is your person, they're a person, you like each other, there's a bond? Or are you so afraid of getting hurt that you don't form that bond? Or
Hmm.
do you enmesh with the other person in the form of codependencies. That codependent actually started off as a term specifically replying to addicts and their families. So that when someone is an addict, when someone does have substance abuse issues or substance overuse issues, that's a sign that something's going on here. That's not a healthy attachment. Someone can't be healthy attached if they've got to get stoned or drunk out of their mind because addiction or substance misuse is grounded in avoidance, in self-medicating, in numbing intense feelings, right? So think about it. If you're trying to have a heartfelt conversation with someone who is altered to the point that their capacity to understand, process, and empathize is impaired, it's not going to go well. So with attachment styles, there's I will say for people, these are good terms, these are good vocabularies to describe something that's happening to you, but there isn't like proven this is definitely the only way to look at this issue. It's just a tool. It's not science, if you will. Psychology is iffy that way. But
the reason why I
yeah,
brought it up was because this is probably the only study. Well, there probably is more. Like my knowledge
yeah,
is very limited. But this was the only study that makes you look inwards rather than
right.
outwards.
Look how it's
right,
designed to
right,
get you to see what you're contributing to toxicity in
right,
relationships, so you can move from a sense of helplessness to a sense of accountability where you actually feel like you're somewhat in control. It's
right,
very, very beneficial when used that way.
right.
Yeah.
Because for me, like I, I don't know. I saw Grace as being someone that's really avoidant. That's what I saw. That's what I saw.
I
But
saw
I
a
don't know.
bunch of anxious attachment styles.
Oh, okay.
Fear of rejection, fear of
Mm,
abandonment, um the dependence on a partner for validation and emotional regulation. There was an enmeshment there
right.
between the two of them. When you start fighting about I gave you love and you didn't give me love, that if you're in a relationship and you find that coming out of your mouth, it may be time to admit defeat or at least reapproach, because let's face it,
Yeah,
that's a terrible situation to be in,
to be
right? Because
right,
there are some times where we really do need that validation. Just please tell me you're angry at me, but you don't hate me.
right,
Please just reassure me a little bit because I am struggling here. But you cannot force, you cannot coerce affection. And if he felt like, and this is something that, in terms of his next steps, what he does, this is something I think he could be a very important voice in making it okay for men to talk about this stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
He already started with the whole, his fashion attire and all of that.
yeah.
Complete the arc.
I,
Sorry to
I,
throw class there. Sorry to
yeah, I do think though that if you have to walk around with a coffee cup to remind yourself to not let other people fill your cup, that is a big indication that he does have an anxious attachment issue, right? He is
Oh,
very reliant on other people. When people talk about that stuff, I do a podcast on mental health and I have a bunch of top 10 phrases. That's not because I'm good at those things. Those are the things I need reminders for. When you are externalizing that, when you need a physical symbol of reminding yourself, don't be reliant on other people for your own emotional validation. He's aware of this tendency. And I know the difference between awareness of what you have to do and actually being able to do it. That's a marathon, right? That is
right.
not close. That is years of work. And I do think that he was clearly pretty vulnerable, and I think he was really lonely. And I do think that I don't want to go so far. There are certain women that are very, very good at catering to that need in the short term, but then it becomes transactional, right? I kind of joked about it last time where, I said she went full blue Cantrell and just ran up his credit card debt, right?
Hit 'em up style.
But but that's a form of abuse as well, right? When you
Right.
go running up your man's credit card,
Financial abuse,
again,
really.
it's
Yeah.
normalized, it's retaliatory, right? The revenge partying got mocked, but we do really have to talk about the fact that that is abusive. It's not criminal,
Yeah.
but it's abusive. If she's so afraid of him, that's very toxic, right? If she's telling the truth and she is afraid of him, she's deliberately provoking him the minute he gets that credit card bill. That's
Oh.
not smart.
I did not. Ooh. Oh, wow. See, this is why I love Liana, guys. Guys, this is why I love her. Because
Okay,
while everyone,
I grew up
no,
with this.
no. 1 second. I gotta give you your flowers here. I gotta give you, because you picked up two things that many people have not picked up. You picked up the coffee cup, but at the same time, while myself included, everyone, myself included, were focused on the chase. You're like, well, what would happen if he sees the credit card bill? Yeah.
I have been
You deserve flowers for
when
that.
I was younger, and I'm not saying everybody reacts the same,
Right.
but if you are afraid of the guy, if he is putting you in your place, you don't go ballistic when you find out he's been cheating. I was like, of course. Of course, because at that point you feel so worthless. That person has ground you down so much that you're just like, yep. And what choice do I have? He's right. I'm not good enough for him. He's right. I did deny him love. And, we all know that if you don't give a man love at home, he's going to go out. Like the fact that she just exploded, that doesn't fit the profile that the prosecution was presenting of a woman who lived in fear. This is a very volatile relationship when things were, and she said when things were great, they were great. It's just that the bottoms were too low. But from a social perspective, from a community, from an environmental perspective, that isn't addressed through courts. That is recognizing, like you said, okay, what am I bringing to this dynamic? What can I not do? And I do think that we can throw around the term mutual abuse all we like, but one of
Right.
the things we have to do in terms of cycle breaking is take these normalized behaviors. I love Hit 'Em Up Style. I freaking love that song. But right alongside, before he cheats, I will blast that song and remind myself, this is abusive behavior. Think it, don't do it. Right? Like
Right.
it's just like, some of the stuff Tupac did. It's some of the stuff that Jonathan Majors was trying to show in his work, with movies like Creed, with the movie that got shelved because of this, and it's unfortunate. But we, just because we're saying something doesn't mean we're saying it's right. And I think that I'm going to come right out and say it, whiteness inherent in the discussion of domestic violence in the public eye means we're not actually solving the problem. We're not actually dealing with those underlying issues. We're just going, oh, don't do it in public where we can see it, right? Because that is a very, very white attitude. Like, we're going to turn a blind eye. It's a private matter. Until you make it our problem, and then we're going to go, oh, you should be terribly punished because now they look like good people and the problem goes away. As opposed to how I grew up, which, you heard the neighbors screaming and throwing things. at 1 in the morning. There were the videos that I really shouldn't watch, but I do watch, those videos where there's a big long lead up to the couple scrapping
Right.
and you see the body language change and that he just got wounded and didn't react and she's baiting him and all he has to do is take that one step towards and then she's on him like freaking Blanca in Street Fighter, man, like all those claws and kicks and all that stuff, and when you that's what I think, maybe not what you think, but um people sorry.
Continue. No. Do your
We'll
thing.
just
Do your
take a
thing.
moment with that one. And people, this is where I get accused of, oh, you're making light of domestic violence. No, this is a cope, right? Because when you grow up exposed to this all the time and it is normalized, like what else can you do but make like you're putting a funny metaphor to it so that you can process the horror.
Yeah.
And this is something I think that um the pageantry of victimization, it robs victims of dignity. The fact that you are expected to get up there and be weepy and say, he ruined my life, he destroyed me, I'm a shell of my former self, instead of going, it happened, I can't change it, I'm going to take a neutral perspective on it in my own mind. It is over. What have I learned from it? I am not dead. I am not broken. I am not defiled. I am a person, and this is wisdom. And that's where we have to get if we're actually going to break the
The
cycle of
cycle. Yeah.
abuse,
Right.
right? Because Jonathan Majors is now going to have to live with the fact that he called the cops and he's the one that ended up charged. That is true. He did, and this is the tragedy of the whole thing that is not talked about enough. He did the right thing, even though he wanted out of the relationship, and society made him pay for it. And that happens to so many people. And then the question is, then what? How do you go on with your life when something that unfair happens?
No, that's this is that's a very good point. And if he wasn't, I do perceive him as a strong character, because with the suicide, with the unaliving stats, deletion from the timeline, Kang might, remove himself from the timeline in this case, because
And let's face it,
issues like
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was only going to say issues like this is prevalent with men more, because they just keep quiet about this. If he was to focalize, hey, how you guys treated, he'll be like, shut up, shut up, fat ass.
And there's a way to judo that. There's a way to judo that. There's a way to take responsibility while still making it very clear that the facts were wrong. I mean, okay, the fact that he was found guilty of assault of his former partner, that is a fact that is actually misleading in this case, right? Because unfortunately we didn't get to it with Legalbytes, but I wanted to talk about the fact that all a trial can determine is guilt or not guilt on the charges before the jury. Right? So there is the legal system, and there's a reason you'll notice I say legal system and not justice system, because a lot of times the law is not just. And in this case, anybody that saw that video and saw that she was the aggressor is like, how is this fair?
Right.
And the laws are doing what they are designed to do. They are designed to keep people who shouldn't be together away from each other. And this comes from sexism as well, right? You remove the man from the home because mama got to take care of the babies. things like that. You remove the man from the home because he can go somewhere else. It's harder for, it's like people are cats and the women are more territorial or some shit. Like, these are all very dated attitudes. And, the greater problem is that we do not want people trying to settle these things themselves. We do not want people hesitant to call 911 when there is distress like this. And this is where we get into discussion of, in a situation where there is no risk of violence, are the police the right first responders in a case like this? Or is a mental health professional or someone who's an addiction counselor more likely to be the best outcome for everyone here? Right? Because think about it from her perspective. She's the perfect profile for speaking to cops. The women who do lie about what happened is you're
She
in an
did volunteer that
embarrassing
he.
situation.
Yeah, she did.
She woke up, there were men looming over her. She probably did feel unsafe.
In
She
that
was
moment.
embarrassed that, she literally got caught with her pants down. And I'm a big fan of no pants, but with the cops, that's not your best day.
See, Liana is actually a professional comedian as well, so
Yeah,
that
I have a
literal
background in
reference,
comedy.
it hit me. It hit me.
Yeah. Again, it's a cope because I'm putting myself in this situation and going,
Yeah.
that would be so humiliating. And there is, in some people, embarrassment, you make up a lie. And it might not completely be a lie. I do think that her capacity for falsehood when she was that, she had to have been hungover and
Mm.
still, sleeping off either the booze and God knows whatever else she took, and then possibly some sleeping pills as well. If I could lie under those circumstances, my God, I'd probably make a lot more money. Because when I'm first waking up, it's like, you got it this morning. I'm like, nope. Like, I was Kratos in messages, right? Like, yeah.
You're like, you told me.
I was like, right when I said that, I was like, oh man, that was
No.
not as blunt.
No.
I was
I
like, no coffee, right? And
No, I
so
read it.
the
I read
I
it. I
the
was
I
like, no. Trust me. I read it. I was like,
yeah.
oh no.
As soon as I sent it, I was like, oh, that sounded so harsh. But then I'm like, if I change it and delete it, it's probably going to look worse. So we're just going to run with it. But, I'm putting myself in that position again. Is it more likely she told the truth then and then lied? Or is it more likely she lied when she was only partially coherent?
I'm
You hear it on the tape, right?
right.
She's
No.
slurred.
I'm glad that you brought that in because we established on the previous stream with Natalie, the lawyer chick who is a criminal defense attorney.
Mm-hmm.
You can go watch that as well. That's for the chat. But anyway, we basically established this because we were like, why wasn't that Cam brought in the audio anyway? Because she does allege he was getting choked, etc. All those things. She was
Do you
getting
notice
choked.
that the original accusation of strangulation just disappeared?
Yes, 100%. This is what I'm referring to. Like,
Yeah.
because if you were to damage someone's credibility on this, bring that in. But then Nali did say, oh, if the cops were already testifying to it, then this is just gonna kind of prove that assertion. So hearsay becomes
I think that, like, if I were not approaching this because I'm not a lawyer, but if I was doing this as a facilitator, in an intervention, it wouldn't be you're lying. It's, are you and you got to be careful not to gaslight. What you have to do is say, well, you said this here, and then you said this here. Help me out here. These don't line up to me. Right?
yeah.
That's how you approach it. That's um more of what Camille Vasquez did in the Johnny Depp trial. She's just like, well, you said this, but you said this over here. You got to matlock it.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
Like you got to go in real easy, and then you sort of give the person an off ramp to admit that, because I mean, she played it pretty.
yeah,
Those
because
text messages she sent him after the fact, I had a real problem with. And again, I'm a lone voice in the woods on this one because, she's like, oh, nothing's going to happen. I told them it wasn't your fault. That felt passive aggressive to me.
that, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's my point. So that's my point because okay, I do understand that she did actually admit to it. So, but she did actually admit to saying no, that wasn't true, this and that, etc. So it may have taken this thing out of the defense's ploy to say, listen, like the fact that you told the police knowing his fear is very bad because it wasn't true. Like they could have gone on that angle, but they, but
I have a theory.
yeah.
I have a theory about that, and it's just a theory, right? Because I have seen people who, it's very common in borderline personality disorder, but some other conditions as well, where they sincerely believe they were abused. And so when they say, yes, he abused me, they come across as credible because they
They
believe
actually
it.
believe it. Yeah.
I do believe she feels sincerely wronged. I do believe that she blames him for her injuries. I do believe there's a very good chance that she did sustain those injuries in that car. Because just how hard she was coming at him. Like those injuries could have come with her grabbing his coat and him pulling away, right? That can damage it. A lot of things could have happened there. But I do believe she thinks he is responsible because profiling addicts, nothing's ever their fault. It's always you made me. I can't help it. And that is why it's a codependency, right? You cannot be in an adult relationship with someone who is not accountable for anything.
And I appreciate how this stream has gone. In all fairness, we have only 7 minutes left. I'm gonna bring the stream to a close.
I'm glad the super chats are coming. Like, hey guys, it's like burlesque. Please tip.
No, I
Please,
appreciate.
if you like the content, support creators.
Karen De Silva, thank you ever so much for your £5 super chat. She is a Londoner. So
Nice.
thank you so much for your support. She is there is I want to go full circle with this because you did bring up the point in regards to reporting your stalker to the police, and they said to you, you need to have basically have her punch you, and then you can come in, and it mirrors a case here, because this case is this is someone
horrendous, but very believable.
It's horrific. It's horrific because I saw this and I reached out to the individual that was being interviewed. Her name is Tashmia Owen. I'm not gonna but basically we spoke about it. The interview will be released on the channel because she spoke about it. I'm looking more into this and why activists don't report more on this. I don't know whether it's a fear. I don't know whether it's
they don't want to discourage people from going to the police.
I don't know, because I'm really trying to understand how you have only one publication, and it doesn't surprise me that it's the Daily Mirror, because them and the Daily Mail tend to focus on cases like this, while the other bigger, they don't pick up on it. But she basically says here that institutionally, at least in the UK context, that they are institutionally racist, sexist, and homophobic. That's I'm just going on Cliff Notes everything, and she I'm going. She basically said it here. Damn it! I had it written down here.
The thing about the 2 broken legs, it was a
Yes,
subheader up top.
yeah. I don't. So the surgeon.
No, go up further.
Yeah. I believe it's here. I missed it. Apologies.
It was in the subheader right under the main headline.
Oh, okay. Okay, so boomer moment.
There it is.
What?
To call unless she was dying or having her legs broken.
Wait, where is it? Oh,
the big ones. The big letters.
The big ones. This is so embarrassing. I am 32, guys. I'm a millennial, but I'm having these
you haven't had a lot of sleep lately, though, man. Go easy on yourself. Before I start singing Adele, let's move on. Yeah.
But yeah, she said Met police told rape victim not to call unless she was dying or having her legs broken. Yeah. This echoes what you were saying so much in regards to, like, how are you getting told to, like, to me personally, despite the fear, like, let's say that that the activists do have a fear, and I want to have your opinion on this. Yeah, but let's say that the activists do have a fear that survivors would not come forward, like, potential victims would not actually come forward because they see their police being broken. Wouldn't it be better to put them on blast for this? Because it seems like they're hiding in plain sight. It really seems like they're playing into this. Like, this is horrifying.
Southeast London. That's the first thing that jumps out at me, right?
Oh, Greenwich. Yeah.
This jurisdiction to jurisdiction, you know better than I do what Southeast London's like, right? It's above average nationally UK crime rate. That is one thing. That was the issue I got into with 2 Division York Regional Police, is that they're like, we investigate murders and home invasions, and it was a criminal harassment complaint at the time. And so some cops just get so beaten down. And this was a female cop, to be clear. People assume it was a man. The sergeant that talked to me, he was a man, but the original cop was a woman, and she was just not having any of it. And they're overworked. They see the absolute worst of humanity, and cops are people, right? If friends of mine who are police were like, you drew a bad cop. A big problem with my particular case was that she was following me literally to different cities. So I couldn't establish a pattern because Toronto police and York Regional Police don't talk to each other, because there's this inferiority complex that the police departments around Toronto, because Toronto has much more resources on a lot of things. And the cop I talked to in Toronto said, if you had reported the crime here, we probably would have taken you more seriously. And I said, I couldn't report the crime in Toronto because I went there and they said, you can't do it here. You have to report in your place of residence if at least one of the instances happened in the same community where you live. So I was literally caught in a jurisdictional crack that meant I couldn't prove a pattern of following me to places with an intent to menace. So that this is why I say the legal system, not the justice system. I do think the fact that it was Southeast London, and this is not fair. This just is, right? Because if I was living in, say, if somebody was living in Chelsea and they phoned with the exact same thing, they're going to get treated very, very different. Note the melanin of
Chelsea over here is just like Chelsea in New York. It's no difference. It's literally
anything
big, isn't
named
it?
Chelsea, it's
Yep,
like Forest
yep,
Hill here or the rich side of Hyde
yep,
Park, you
yep,
know?
yep.
There it just it is different. It's the amount of resources. It's that
Mm.
the police are more aware that these are people who know their rights. They probably have lawyers. They don't want the hassle. Just pet them on the head, make them feel cared about. And you do not get that everywhere. Now, my issue was I grew up in I grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't affluent. And I had a particular expectation of police because of that. They were very slow to react there, and you needed like to quote Amber Heard, a mountain of evidence to get hurt. Whereas in the more affluent area I moved to where I made the complaint, they don't want we don't have phone books anymore, but they don't want the law manual file thick because they have to go through all of that. So what basically happened is that they went to the woman stalking me. She gave this very, very tearful, she's actually abusing me. And the cops went, this is a she said. She said, you're just a couple of, I'm paraphrasing here, you're just a couple of crazy bitches. The cop called it a cat fight. That's sexism right there. Because if two guys were brawling, it would have been taken a lot
Way
more
differently.
seriously.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
This idea that when it's two women, it's a cat fight. When it's a man's involved at all, oh, somebody could really get hurt there. And I mean, I spent because she knew where I lived. Um, she knows where I live again. And apparently I was told by the police, that's not hard if you're a homeowner. They can just look it up on publicly available searches. But, she delighted in sending me emails with my address saying this is where you live. That's legal unless she shows up on the property. And so right now I'm in a situation where they've said if she shows up, do not open the door, do not engage with her. You see her, you call the police. Because at that point now I have all this online activity that is clearly her. She shows up, that's when she breaks the law. But until then, all of the online stuff destroying my reputation, accusing me of horrible like harmful stuff in terms of the work I do, that is all completely legal. Not because it is technically illegal. It is technically harassment. But the cops don't want to bother. It's a resources question. And so police funding is also an issue here. This whole thing is a collection of intersecting issues. And
Hmm.
my attitude, I'm in the same boat as Tashmia Owen. I to do it again, I probably wouldn't have gone to the police. They made it worse instead of better. Because the other thing they did is they told me, "Look, just tell the people you work with that it's an open investigation." And then they closed the case without telling me. So they made me look like a liar.
Okay.
And I asked them, "Will you tell me if that changed?" And they said yes, and they didn't. And so it depends, right? It
I
really
would have just I
depends.
would have just thrown the book at them at that point. But like
You can't.
let's you
You
can't?
can't. I looked into whether I could file what's called an OIPRD complaint. The problem is that when you escalate, this is an awesome deep dive into the system. When you escalate, at least here, and again, it's jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and obviously rich people get better treatment than the rest of us. But when you say, I'd like to speak to a supervisor, or, you go full Karen, the cop goes to their supervisor and tells them what's what. And the sergeant doesn't call you until they've already got the cop side. And that's where you get the blue wall, right? And then you phone the OIPRD line, which is the complaints departments here. And they pretty much say, well, we'll open a file if you want, but just at a first glance, there's no problem with the investigation here. We see no failure of law. What they don't tell you is that's not the only thing you can make a complaint against. You can make a complaint about the conduct of the officer, but they actively gaslight people in this complaint process. So only the most vindictive, vengeful people actually go through with it. And those are the people who are more likely to just be behaving maliciously. So the
She
system's
said,
working for no one.
she said this is an awesome deep dive into all of this, and I'm just gonna drop a Heinz bomb on that. All right.
Yeah, all right.
But unfortunately, I'm gonna have to bring it to a close.
Yeah, we can talk about this later, but yeah.
Yes.
You gotta
Honestly,
sleep.
no, it's not even sleep. I need to do shopping.
Okay, shop. I will say really quickly so we don't end this on a
No.
downer. This is why I got into the peer counseling and the mental health work that I do,
Yes.
because the cops are not the solution. Even if the person, when the stalker was arrested, put on a year's probation, she swears
I'm
she did
glad to
nothing
hear.
wrong, but she started up right again afterwards. And so punishment does not make you feel better. We all think someone being found responsible for it, some entity saying that they did this is wrong, will make you feel better. It
Right,
only
right.
makes you feel better in the short term. Long term healing does not come from retribution. And that's why me and other people like me are doing supports. I ended up falling into working almost exclusively with men. I do work with women as well. The male clientele is just the bulk of what I do, but there are
Right.
groups out there. They are social organizations, local organizations that can help you heal. What the court says is just the law. It's not the truth. So, if you have been here, if you feel re-victimized by the Johnny Depp stuff, by the Jonathan Major stuff, there are people out there who can facilitate your healing. They can support you while you do the tough stuff of unpacking it and putting yourself together. It is not hopeless. You can have a life after abuse. It's possible.
Thank you ever so much, Liana K, for joining me today. You can go check out her stuff. She does Manly Mondays. Is it? I don't know what is it, Mental Health Wednesdays.
Well, this was I waffle back and forth. I do Manly Mondays on Monday. I do Two Women Talking with Song W. Erickson on Tuesdays, and then Wednesday is a mix of some mental health stuff and then some video game stuff as well, because that's what I started as.
Yeah.
And then Thursdays I have a podcast. It's called It's Not Therapy. It's broken right now. All of the links to Apple and stuff like that are broken. It's up to date on Podbean. We're trying to get it fixed, but there's like 60 some odd episodes
Yes.
you can go back and listen to as well, wherever you get your podcasts, called It's Not Therapy.
No, you definitely go and check her out, because her insight into these conversations is so nuanced that I sometimes forget she's actually a feminist. But to me, I call her I call her the sane feminist.
I gotta quote that. I forget she's actually a feminist. That is the best compliment anyone can give me. Anyone can give. Yeah. See, I was talking about first wave feminism, and you still forgot I'm that good.
But yeah, I do appreciate her for joining me today, and also Legalbytes replay crew. If you're watching this back, you can watch this back, and and catch up with it, because it's such an important discussion, and I'm glad every single one of you has been really receptive to a lot of the opinions that has come out, because sometimes it can be a hard pill to swallow. Sometimes it can be really insightful. I hope we're kind of in the middle. I want it to be both insightful and a hard pill to swallow, because the truth is the truth. It's not meant to be all of just one side.
It's messy.
The truth is the truth.
The truth is
and I'm
messy.
yeah. So I appreciate everyone that was here. I thank you for rocking with us for 3 hours. It didn't feel like 3 hours, to be honest.
Didn't feel like 3 hours. It didn't. Granted, we did like what 5 on verdict days. So
Yeah,
short
no,
by comparison.
9 hours. It was
You
9.
did 9. I didn't do 9.
Oh
I
yeah,
had to
oh, yeah,
go.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like. But anyway, thank you ever so much. Have a happy New Year, Karen, and the rest of the stream. Thank you, everyone that has super chatted. That shout out to you, Karen, Dre Mac, as well. Sorry about that. I had a cough. As well as the previous super chatters that have been super chatting all of my streams. I really do appreciate your support. If you are watching this back on replay, do send a super thanks. Do consider sending a super thanks if you find value in it. But no pressure. Once again, I want to extend my courtesy to Liana. Thank you ever so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful day over there in Toronto. Thank you so
I
much.
will pressure. If you like this content, support your creators. Give this guy some money, you guys. He works his butt off to get people here at the ass crack of like shark dawn over here. And we do it because it's him. So if you like this content, pay him money.
Give me money.
Money.
I'm
Roll
joking,
the
I'm
dollars. Give him money. oh, you're going red. Yes, now the stream can
Oh
end.
God!
This is why he's the catcher man.
Thank you so much. Oh, making me blush, man.
Give him money.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm gonna close out there. Just a quick announcement. I have released the third part of the investigative kind of study into Depp v. Heard, brought together all the evidence in that case. The last part is going to be released where we talk about a bit about this, but it's going to look at high PV and the statistics, up-to-date statistics. I've spoken to therapists in regards to that, and also researchers that really look into this stuff. And I really hope that when that does release in the new year, that you guys could give that a view. But you can see all of the other deep dives, part 2A, B, and C, that goes into each and every incident, so that you can come to your own conclusion whether she should be called this, because whether she should be called a victim or an abuser. I don't call her that throughout the I want to leave that onto you, but I do have my opinions on those deep dives, and you will see for yourself the evidence in that case. But go check that out. It is out now on the channel. It's called Legal Labyrinths, Depp v. Heard Labyrinth Part C. So check that out. Thank you so much again, Liana, and everyone else. Take care of yourself. Have a great day. Yeah, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.